All right, guys. Good evening and welcome to Deep River's public hearing, or regular meeting and public hearing Thursday, August 18th, 2022. It is now 7:00 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Mike Danello.
Present.
Thank you. Fred Jordan. He's here, but he's muted.
Present.
All right, Jonathan Kastner. I saw him too. You there, Jonathan? I'm skipping for this a second. Alan
Can
Parody.
you hear me?
There we go. Jonathan, you're there. All right. Alan Parody.
I'm here.
Dan Reinheimer.
Here.
Marion Stay.
Here.
Alex Strobel. And Christy Stroud. All right. Mike, I'm going to seat you for Christy. And Fred, I'm going to seat you for Alex Strobel. All right. Moving on to public hearing, item 3. Item A is a special permit for conversion of an existing barn into 600 square feet retail space for 11 Union Street. Applicant Jeannie Maneri. This is continued from the July meeting. Map on screen. Is there agent or applicant who wants to give a little brief on this?
Hi there. Hi again, everyone. Yeah, so where we left off, it was actually the June meeting. I had to, take some time to get the site survey as was recommended in that last hearing. And so I think the big call outs were around just ensuring that the property and where the barn sits and the parking
Oh, you
We're
can
all
turn it up
noted.
again if you want.
and on my actual property. So the survey was done and
Turn
it
it on if you want.
I'm sorry, hold on one second.
Are you just gonna test your sugar?
and it
Jeannie, can you unmute yourself? I just hit mute all.
yeah, thank
There.
you.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
so this the survey was done and it does show the existing barn, which is on the upper left hand side of the property, and then the parking, which is for the barn only. This is not my home parking, so it does show where the house sits, and then to the right of the home is additional parking for my own personal use. I also did provide some photographs that show that 2 cars comfortably fit within this paved drive for the barn. And I believe that when I had talked to Steve, he had looked up the regulations, and for the square footage, it was really only a requirement for 1, but there clearly is enough space for 2, if not 3 cars for just the barn.
All right, anybody have any questions for the applicant? Anybody from the commission? All right. If not, I'm going to open up to the public. Anybody from the public? Questions, concerns, in favor? Yep.
Just a clarification. This is a site plan, not a public hearing.
Well, we have it listed under public hearing.
Okay.
Is it not?
I believe it's just a site plan application, but that may be my mistake in including it under public hearings just because it was continued.
Ah, okay. It's a special permit for conversion, so it is not, huh? So should we just skip this till old business since we've opened the public hearing?
John, it's a special permit, right?
Is it? I'm sorry,
It says
Steve, I
special
maybe I was
permit.
confused. I thought it was just a site plan. Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Okay, so continue. Anybody, sorry about that. Anybody from the public in favor? Anybody in the public in favor? You got to do the 3 times. Sorry, guys.
Wait, in favor of this happening?
Yep.
Yep, I'm in favor and I'm a neighbor.
You got to give me your name.
It's Christine Nucci.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor of this project? All right. Anybody opposed? Anybody from the public? Anybody from the public opposed?
Can
And
you say what project you're talking about?
yep, it's the 11 Union Street. The one that's on the screen.
I don't have a screen. This
Oh.
Zoom call is like a pain to get into.
Sorry.
I really don't know why Zoom call in this day and age, and we can't just come down to the town hall. It's taken me about 15 minutes to get into the Zoom call, so I apologize for being late, but it's not very user friendly.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody opposed? All right. Any general comments, concerns? All right. Everybody can, from the commission, have enough information? And if so, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mike. Looking for a
I'll
second?
second.
Oh, who's second? Stan?
A second.
Okay. Fred? You there?
I think when you
Muted everybody?
muted everybody, he didn't pick up on that.
Sorry, guys, there was a background noise. I had to mute everybody. So Fred, you're gonna have to unmute yourself again.
Who made the motion?
Mike Danello and Stan seconded.
All right, thank you.
Jonathan? Sorry, guys. Alan Parody?
Yes.
All right. Marion?
Yes.
And if these guys, I'll vote in favor, or vote to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item B, modification of existing special permit for volume reduction facility and transfer station at 400 Commercial Drive. Applicant Eastern Transfer Station continues from the July meeting. Give me a second, I put some of that stuff up on the screen.
Recording.
Just trying to.
All right, is there an agent or applicant who wants to add to this? Do we continue this from last month?
Good evening. Brenton Elliott, the applicant. And Mark Sesson, our engineer, I believe is on the call as well. And hi, Mark. And I also have Chris Oxer, who's manages the facility here as well and is available for questions.
All right, commission members, you guys have any more questions? I know last time we were concerned about the traffic study. It looks like they did do the traffic study. I know Marion was concerned about doors. I know there still hasn't been any input from wetlands. I know they missed their last meeting, so unfortunately.
Tony, I do
Right.
have questions, but are we going to start with the public first and revert to the commission, or procedurally, how did you want to do this? Because this is the public portion, right?
Yeah, it's public portion, but I mean, we have to get all of our input if we're ever.
Okay. There is one clarification that I'd like to get, and I just kind of started from the beginning on this because this is a modification to a special permit, but a special permit, I believe, requires that it is a allowed use within the zone with a special permit. But going through our zoning regulations, I don't see where this use is permitted in this zone under a special exception or a special permit or as of right use. So I just want to understand the kind of how we expand a special permit for a use that's not listed in our regulations. And this is a question for the applicant. I know you know where you reference our regulations, under what special permit are you looking to expand? Because I believe this is a non-conforming use. I know you were granted a permit, but I believe it's non-conforming in our regulations.
It's going back to 2005. This use has been, I guess it's non-conforming. The zoning regulations don't address it at all. This is a modification of an original permit from 2005 that had been modified in 2008. It's going back to a zoning reg that I don't think is even on the books anymore. It's 5412. I think it should be a relatively straightforward. I don't know if it's a change in use or it's really just an amplification of the original special permit.
But you're asking for an expansion of a use which is not permitted in that zone.
I mean, to be honest, Commissioners, this is the first time this issue's been raised with us.
Okay. Yeah, he's gonna, to follow that up, we also haven't heard from wetlands and we don't have we can't act.
Well,
Without-
so if I may, so we did look into this wetlands issue. And we did contact the wetlands officer a couple times, and I think John and maybe even you were on the email chain. It doesn't seem to us, and this is just, I'm not the wetlands officer, but I think it should be noted that my principal also owns the property next door, which is 500 commercial.
Yep.
And 500 commercial, I think has been determined to be within the upland review area. But I'm not sure that wetlands is an issue on 400 itself, just looking at the survey. We were trying to get an opinion from your wetlands officer about that, but I don't think we succeeded unless John was able to speak to him about it. But at least to us, it seems apparent that this parcel is not within the review area.
400 maybe outside. Okay. So it sounds like there's a couple of things we gotta look into. Outside review. Okay. Anybody else from the commission? Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
The traffic survey that you did was on August 12th. And school is out at the present time. So what happens when school comes back and the two schools are down in the bottom and then everybody's merging in that area?
Well, I think what's interesting about the traffic study is that road is not anywhere near capacity at this point. So I mean, unless Mark, you jump in here if you can, but I believe that the number is around 30% of capacity on that road. I'm not sure the extent that school traffic would really affect that in a really dispositive way. Mark, can you maybe address that?
That's exactly what Attorney Elliott said is the case, is that the Route 80 itself is low to moderate as the state would classify it, and our traffic engineers agree as to why that. And traffic really has not changed substantially. It's up a slight amount since the facility was originally opened in 2007, based on the traffic counts that were done out there by the state in 2005. It's up about 12% in the last 17 years, but it's still in the low to moderate traffic range. And right now, we did the counts that we could do, which was last Thursday, since the last meeting. But and we also compared the existing traffic flow as operating between 250 and 270 or so tons per day on the peak days that we looked at in July. and then did that comparison to what it would look like if the facility was operating at a full 600 and tons per day. And as you might expect, you know, the total number of round trips would increase, as we've said, but once again, as I had previously indicated, these are not big peak hour generators. That generally they're professional drivers coming throughout the day and looking at what we'd see in the morning peak and the afternoon peak. They operate at level of service. The overall intersection is at level of service A now, and would continue to operate at level of service A in the future. The only real change to that is if you're coming, you know, Woodbury itself is B. If you're going to make a turn, left turns out, there's a slight delay now, and there'd be a slight delay in the future. And also what we looked at is there was some discussion about whether or not there were accidents out here. And I could say we looked at many years, but the last 3 years in particular, the UConn, the University of Connecticut, DOT used to maintain all the trash accident data. Now the Connecticut crash data repositories up at UConn, the DOT and the state police and local police, and there haven't been any, you know, contrary to what we heard about the intersection of Woodbury and Route 80. There have been 0 accidents in 3 years at the intersection of 80 and Woodbury, or within a tenth of a mile of Route 80 and Woodbury. And frankly, there's not a lot of accidents. If you look at Route 80 end to end through the whole length of Deep River, there weren't a lot of accidents. And we've submitted, you know, with the traffic update, a detailed listing of all the accidents. And like I say, there's not really like a capacity situation out there now. There wouldn't be in the future. There may be some additional residential or bus traffic when schools are in session, but really there's not a lot of traffic on the road. It's low to moderate and would be low to moderate in the future. And those numbers that we're comparing are the ADT, the state's capacity based on years of counts out there. It was where the 5,600 came from, and it was 5,000 back in 2005. But those counts,
apparently you're not aware of the garbage truck that laid on its side just a little ways up the road within the last couple months.
I'm aware of that. That to me is not a function of the facility; it's a function of the driver.
Well, but you just said there hadn't been any accidents there, and that's incorrect.
I said no. I said within a tenth of a mile of the intersection of Woodbury.
No, that's within a tenth of a mile, I would say.
No, it was the DOT says, and the state crash repository say otherwise, because that accident's listed on there.
Well, we're splitting hairs here.
So I want to ask a question, and I hope you guys can run through this just for clarification. So originally this was a site that was just to take X. And if you can explain the difference, because I don't think that's ever been actually explained to the commission, what the difference is between the two things. So at this moment in time, I know you have DEP approval. Are you taking batteries? Are you taking electronics? I know household garbage, everybody just throws that out there. But what's the breakdown?
There are three prime. What you're talking about, the batteries, which are relatively low volume and universal waste, aren't something that this facility markets towards. Those things, all of the towns in the state are obliged to have a location for people and commercial establishments to bring their batteries and waste oil and antifreeze to. Most towns, like in Deep River, they're at the so-called citizens drop-off. The three primary types of commercially handled materials are recyclables like commercial cardboard, demolition materials, construction demolition materials, which are generally handled in roll-off containers or what people would commonly refer to as a dumpster. And those containers roll off the chassis, and you can leave them in people's yards when they're doing clean outs or demolition or reconstruction of the kitchen or bathroom, or contractors use them on construction sites. And so the original facility here was permitted to accept recyclables like commercial cardboard and other commercial recyclables, as well as demolition material, C&D, which are often in the same dumpster, where if both for commercial and for residential reconstruction or new construction, they generally use the same type of dumpsters. And so when we refer to municipal solid waste being the third primary of the recyclables and the dump C&D or demo, and municipal solid waste is what most people would refer to as household trash, things that you bag up. And a lot of people, if you have commercial pickups, you would put them in your toter, or if you bring your own to the transfer station, it's the bags that you would typically come from your house. And so when we're referring to municipal solid waste, we're referring to the bag waste. I'll say one other thing about the C&D. Often what we would refer to as oversized municipal solid waste, which would include furniture, rugs, mattresses, carpets, things like that. Those are typically handled in dumpsters with cleanouts. And so, if sometimes people doing a renovation, they would throw their old furniture in with the C&Ds. But when we're talking about MSW, most people are referring to the household garbage or waste. And that was what was not part of the original local application, but was part of subsequent applications made to the state by I believe the second prior owner. The original owner, as I mentioned at the last hearing, had only sought from the state and from the town recyclables and construction and demolition material / oversized bulky, the type of stuff that would come in a dumpster, or the stuff or commercial cardboards. And that's why the baler that's shown in the middle of the site plan here, above where it says loading bay, right there, right where the hand is. On that side of the concrete wall, there's a concrete wall just to the left of that noted that bisects the building. That's where recyclables were brought in and baled historically. The rest of where it's below that on the plan where it says volume reduction facility is where the construction debris, demolition debris, and the furniture, rugs, and mattresses had been historically handled. And the MSW that was sought by prior owner with the state would be to handle in that same part of would be to separate into that part of the tip floor where the hand is now, two areas. One area that would handle the C&D, and the other area would handle MSW, which is household and commercial MSW.
So I've got most of that. I'm still a little concerned about electronics. You did mention oil and antifreeze.
Well, yeah, those things are things that aren't handled here. Those are
Okay.
handled elsewhere, primarily by the town or other facilities that are so-called designated to so-called handle universal waste. What universal waste is what the DEEP, or Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and the EPA would refer to as universal waste.
Okay.
And this type of facility, has signs out there, but there's a section of the statutes where, and like I said, probably too quickly, that each town is obliged to have a location for those materials to be handled, and those, and it's not here, and the company doesn't seek to handle the universal waste. What they have, what the state does say is if one of those is brought in unauthorized, there's two things they can do with it. One is to segregate it and put into a small can and promptly get those to where they should be. The other one is to just give it back to the owner. And Chris may be able to say, if, typically what they do, and it should an odd electronic component show up in a dumpster.
Yeah, I just, because, it says municipal solid waste, and I thought, we do throw our stuff at the dump. There's electronics that go there, there's oil that go there. I didn't know if it left there and came to your site, if you guys had to accept that. Okay.
MSW is the term that the EPA and the states use to describe what most people would refer to as household refuse. But whereas so they would refer to those as things like TV monitors, computers, things like that, other forms of electronics, they would refer to as a universal waste, which there are a few other things like fluorescent light bulbs that are fit in the category of universal waste, and batteries, and all of those things are not on the list of approved materials here, and typically aren't handled here.
Okay.
There's been a number of companies in the last few the rules have been on the books for a while, but really I'd say in the last 10 years, it's to the point where the towns and specialized companies like Northeast Lamp Recyclers and others have gotten to really rigorously seek those out, but also some producer liability laws, just like when people used to get a lot of automotive batteries at facilities, but now wherever you buy batteries, they're required to take your old battery, and
Right.
just the same thing with mattresses. This facility mattress would fit in the side thing of oversized municipal solid waste, but most towns and a lot of the haulers are separately collecting mattresses or segregate them in dumpsters to actually be pulled apart and recover the wood and high strength steel and the springs and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of evolution, but sometimes people still put an electronic in here and they would immediately separate it out.
Okay, I have one last question. I don't mean to eat up everybody's time here, but I have another question. So I know that last time there was a concern about, rats in the area. And I see that you have a list from, we're just going to call it an exterminator for lack of a better word here. But it was just a list. Is that actually implemented, or is that like a quote from theirs, or do you guys actually use them?
Commissioner, I'm going to address this to Chris.
Yes, so we actually brought this new company on after I did some extensive research on them, considering we are dealing with a facility that is close to wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new style rat trap that it doesn't poison the rat. It just captures the rat and it basically drowns in the solution, but it doesn't. The problem with rat traps is they eat the poison, they go out into the wild, then other wild animals may eat the rat, and in so you're harming the wildlife. So there's been extensive research done, and I made the decision to switch up to this new style, considering the location, probably about 6 months ago. And thus far it's been working fabulously.
Okay, the reason I ask is because I know there are 2 bobcats in the area. I've got pictures from a couple of people about that. So I was going to ask whether they use poison or not. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll turn it over to the commission instead of eating up everything back here.
Tony, I've got a question because, at the last meeting, Mr. Zessen noted that they don't see rats migrating to the neighbor in front of or in the woods around the facility, and he doesn't believe they'd be traveling 2 miles away. And now we're hearing that they're trapping rats there. So which is the true story? Now, I just read an article from University of Columbia where Norway rats will travel up to 3 miles to forage for food, whereas last month he didn't believe that they would be traveling 2 miles away. So which is the true part of it if they're trapping rats that they don't have?
Well, number one, it is a facility, then you do have some rats there. There's no question there. But what I think he was saying was usually when there's a food source close by, they're not going to venture out. And that is a fact. They don't venture away from the food source. And what we're doing to mitigate and deter any population of growing. That's why we have these rat traps in place.
Are you familiar with the reproduction rate of rats?
I absolutely am, which is why we're trapping them, not letting them get out.
The last month you said you didn't see them going anywhere from off your facility. Well, how would you know that? You have monitors on your rats? Because I know that a selectman that lives nearby there has got rats on his property. And he's not that far away and I'm not that far away. So let's be honest here. We didn't have rats. I lived here for 37 years. I didn't have rats till recently.
I have a question, Commissioner.
Yep.
It's Mike.
Yep.
Mark, I guess this would be for you. Besides the actual zoning questions that are being presented, I looked at the topography of the property and I'm a bit concerned about the vertical leaching of whatever comes out of the property, as well as the surface runoff, because down in the circle, there are 4 storm drains that do lead into and eventually the Connecticut River. In addition to exiting the circle on the left, there's a retention pond that I would assume empties into our town swimming pond. If we get a 1 or 2 inch rain, which is not unusual nowadays, I'm not sure that, again, I'm not a hydrologist, but the system that you have in place is adequate to take that type of surface runoff. And if we've ever done a benchmark of groundwater contamination, I'm not saying that it is, but if we have a benchmark where we can start with and test on an ongoing basis to see if we are having an issue with all of the groundwater contamination.
First off, I'd say everything, all the material is handled inside the building and reloaded inside the building. And right along the entrances to the building are to the left of the hand and from end to end are trench drains. Those are labeled, those are the dashed lines.
Correct.
And then there's also even in the recycling bay, there's additional trench drains. Those trench drains go into additional holding tanks that are not connected to the storm system. Those trench drains are part of the original construction of the facility. The rest of the exterior truck maneuvering areas is all impervious pavement. And
Mark, I see one there. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. But the one, that one you have, it's 1,000 gallons. And then the one.
There was another one, like,
Yep, 750, yep.
750.
Yep.
I mean, realistically, filling up 750 gallons from the surrounding surface water.
No, the surface water, only liquid in the building gets to those tanks.
Okay.
Everything else goes to the storm drains that flow basically in a clockwise direction around the scale. The beginning where it says where the roof leaders are attached directly to the catch basin, that's a catch basin inlet, and then those flow to the storm manhole. There's yard drains connecting there, and then it flows basically along the entrance drive, and then ultimately goes through an oil, water, and floatable separation unit, the so-called Vortec unit that was designed to handle the flushing of this site. And that is also all of these are periodically pumped and cleaned. In the stormwater that, as is labeled on the map, the DSN water discharge serial number 1 has been monitored since the facility was constructed, and those reports are submitted to the DEP in accordance with the site's stormwater discharge permit.
So those records are on, in fact, are on record. So we have a benchmark. So if you begin to bring in more municipal waste.
That's correct. I can say that both the original owners, the people that the second owners and the current owners have all monitored the storm water. And those are quarterly events twice a year, the analytical tests. The other ones are visuals with field monitoring of certain parameters. And those have been going on the whole time the facility's operated. There's what the state refers to as a miscellaneous discharge authorization for the floor drains.
So
And those are-
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you again. So some of the dumpsters that, when they bring a dumpster and it gets emptied inside the building, they're stored outside. And obviously we know they're not steam cleaned and scrubbed. That wouldn't be practical. If we get a heavy rain and the water in those dumpsters spills out onto the surface area, where is all that surface water going? And how can we be assured that it's not ending up down where the kids are swimming?
Typically, there, I believe there's both some level of storage here as well as some level of storage at where the truck fleet is at. There's a separate facility where the actual fleet of trucks are maintained and kept.
Thank you, Mark.
So, the truck maintenance for this fleet here and everything is done elsewhere.
I'll chime in and add that the original special permit approval from 2005 has a condition on it that all of the roll-off containers have to be rinsed before they are stored outdoors.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the commission? If not, I'm gonna open this up to public comment.
So Steve, you're telling me that that's, by the sound of things, that has not been the practice.
I'm not going to confirm or deny that because I don't know.
Well, I
I'm
suppose
just,
Mark
I'm just
would
stating
say
what
that
is in the
happens off
original approval.
property. Mark just said that happens off property, so it's not happening there, but they're storing containers there.
All right.
Can we pull up a Google Earth of the facility? I think the storage is off behind and it's probably got dumpsters sitting right there.
Anybody else from the commission? I'm gonna do that while you guys are. Anybody else from the commission?
Tony, I'd like to kind of revisit the question posed last time, which was a clarification on the actual mix of waste. And I think it's been explained that it started with recyclables and construction demo and then moved to include municipal waste. But the question I was asked previously was, what would the mix be? And we know that those are the components of it, but the reality is, if we grant this special permit, that there's nothing that would exclude the entirety of this operation to be all municipal solid waste, which is significantly different than what the original permit was issued for, because the municipal solid waste has it's a, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the word right, but it's a putrefiable. It's basically, it will rot in place and cause stench, which will travel by air and not necessarily be able to be contained. And I know in the application it says, that the facilities are emptied every 48 hours, except if there's a holiday. And that's exactly the time where the adjacent property, being a public park, a place of public recreation, would be in primary use. So one of the considerations in granting a special permit is it doesn't diminish property value of adjacent properties. Now, it's not that this park is going to be sold and it's hard to place a monetary value, but it certainly it can be quantified in terms of its usability and the quality of that public park if periodically there are smells emitted from the facility. So my concern is that if we grant this, we could eliminate all the beneficial waste transfer and construction debris and recycling, et cetera, and move just to a municipal solid waste and have a significant problem with controlling the odor as it drifts either to the public park, or I don't know if it would carry as far as the middle school. So I'm not confident in the parameters that are placed on, on how we're characterizing the waste that's coming here and the volume and the mix of it, because there would be a significantly different health consideration if this was entirely municipal waste. And I'm not sure that I'm confident in the provisions of containing the odors. I get, there's provisions for rats and for the containment of liquid that might leach out of the containers once it's within the building or in the facility. But we're dripping things in the road, which is, I think it's been pointed out that it's uphill of this recreational site. So I think it is a concern that we haven't clearly defined what the limitations are. I mean, if we say that we're going to be guided by the limitations of the DEP permit that you have in hand, that DEP permit was not designed around what's good for this town. It was designed around what you might be able to do. So I'm not comfortable saying that what's good for the town is what's dictated by what DEP said is a permissible amount to handle in a facility. I think the decision needs to be driven by the context of the site, and I would really like to see a really clear definition of the mix and quantities, and then we can begin to address how those potential health issues get contained.
I agree. All right, so I'm gonna open this up to the public, because I know there's a few people here that wanted to jump in on this, but quickly, Stan, you wanted an aerial view. I'm assuming you have this up on the screen for you guys.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, those are the dumpsters there that they're obviously more for the bulky waste
Yeah.
and things. But yeah, that is quite close.
All right, and then quickly, I haven't had a chance to actually read through this, but there is a Deep River Solid Waste Facility ordinance. So I just want to make everybody aware of that, since we can't close the public hearing tonight. Anyway, if you guys have 2 seconds to read through that, it's section 10 in the Deep River ordinances. Anyway, anybody from the public wish to have questions, comments, speak in favor?
Yeah, this is Nicholas Olson, 10 Woodbury Road.
Good. Nick.
How we doing?
Good. What's going on?
I'm not an anti-business person. The C&D resource of having a transfer station has been very beneficial to the construction community and the surrounding neighborhood. But the expansion of going into household waste is concerning. The Route 80 environment has changed a lot in the last 10 years. I think it's changed for the better. We've got a lot more agriculture on the road. We have beautiful horse farms, and it's changed the right way and the way Deep River has wanted it. Since we have new neighbors at the end of the road, there has been a significant amount of litter, up and down Route 80. Every week I'm mowing the lawn, we're picking up bags and bags and bags of garbage every week. And it's not a question of, stopping you from running a business, but, showing some leadership and being able to pick up and take accountability for some of the, the discharge of the trucks up and down, Woodbury Road and Industrial Park Road. It's a lot, and it has changed drastically in the last couple of years. I would tell you that truck traffic is up since the trash has been coming in. The few 100-degree days, I'm right in front of Platwood Park, and that's fine, but I can already smell the garbage coming out of there. It's very potent. It's very hot right now. We're in a drought. And I think that keeping this contained to C&D and not trash would be in the better interest of the community in Route 80 and the industrial park itself.
Thank you, Nick. All right, so I'm gonna,
Wait, excuse me, Tony, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yep,
It's Sue Hubens from 38 Fairview Ave.
yep,
I thought Alan Paradis made a very good point about expansion of a non-conforming use. And if that is what the applicant is really proposing to do, I think that needs a lot more looking into as far as the legality of that. Because we certainly wouldn't want to allow them to do something like that if that's not within the codes and regulations.
okay, it's new information from both of us. So again, we're not gonna close the public hearing tonight.
Right, but I
So-
would look at that for
We are.
sure.
All
Okay,
right, so quickly, so just not to get off track here. Gonna do in favor first, 3 times. Anybody wants to speak against can do that, and then general comments after that. So anybody want to speak in favor? All right, one more time. Anybody want to speak in favor? And anybody in favor of speaking in favor of this? All right, if not, I'm just gonna ask you guys if you can raise your hands. If you would do that, I have a feeling I'm gonna get bombarded here, so. If not. All right, looks like Gary Clark. Anybody, Gary, I'm assuming you're going against, so Gary Clark, go ahead, and then if anybody could just chime, put their hand up, that'd be great.
Hello, Tony. I hope you can hear me.
I can.
All right, Gary Clark, 46 Laurelwood Drive. I wholeheartedly agree with everybody and Nick talking about the smell. I was down there, and again, it's not the proper time to talk about it because we've never had this much heat, this much drought, everything, but you can smell the municipal waste all the way across the street. I was at a friend's house and you could smell it. I'm trying to use the right terms. I don't think it's that they're trying to do the wrong thing. I just think it's the wrong place. That's all. That's my opinion. And again, I live nowhere near it, but I love my town, so.
Thank you, Gary. Christine Nucci, looks like you're up next.
Okay, so I guess my question is where is the traffic coming from? Which direction? I mean, I know on Union Street where I live, I get a lot of traffic between the transfer stations and then the trucks heading to Route 80. So I was just curious to know, like, where are these trucks coming from to go to this location?
Guys? Okay.
Mark, that's probably a good question for you since you did the traffic study.
Generally, there was a pretty good mix, both trucks coming from either direction on Route 80.
But where are they coming off the highway? Exit 5, exit 4, exit 6, like where? 95?
Chris, maybe you could say the ultimate origin towns, because I don't have that.
All right, so what exit they're coming off of, I'll be honest, we don't know exactly what exit they're coming off of, but the towns that we're mainly servicing, or that, I shouldn't say that we're servicing, the towns that mainly use our facility, they come from Deep River, what's next, Cheshire, Madison, Guilford, Clinton, Westbrook. They're all the adjacent towns that are within the area. We're not taking trash from the entire state by any, or C&D for that fact, from the entire state by any means.
So just for a clarification, the application does not put any limitations on the distance that they'd be coming from. It says most is within a 15-mile. We don't see too much from 30, but they're from 30 miles out. But there is nothing in the application that puts limits on where it's coming from currently or where it will come from in the future. So regardless of where your current recyclables and construction debris and bits of municipal waste comes from now. There's nothing in the application that puts limitations on where you can receive it from.
Right. I understand what you're saying. There's nothing that puts limitations on it, but in general business, in our industry, they're using facilities that are local to where they are, because it doesn't make sense to drive due to fuel costs, maintenance, and everything like that on vehicles to drive further than what someone has to. And just so everybody is aware here, there is a major trash problem within the state of Connecticut. And it's not just the state of Connecticut, it's actually all over the Northeast. With the Mirror closing, the waste energy plant, which was run by the state, when they closed that severely impacted the whole state. By us being able to take the MSW, it's going to create a more economical cost to the constituents of Deep River and your neighboring towns that everybody's friendly with. And again, we're not looking to harm or bring bad blood to the city here, but I think this is a great opportunity for Deep River to move forward in their waste and recycling needs.
Great. Looks like I got a couple more hands here. Mike?
Yeah, just to follow up what Gary said, again, it's not about denying the ability for you guys to grow. It's about making sure that, again, following up what Alan just said and Christine, that if a small plant closes 30 miles from here, well, are we going to be the dumping ground for that until a new site is found? So there's a lot of unknowns with a wet, combustible, rotting product opposed to pallets and construction material that we could be sitting on. And that's just my concern.
So Gary, I'm going to cut you off for 30 seconds here just to piggyback on what Mike said. So, they mentioned that Mirror is closing. Essex is a Mirror station. So eventually that will close, and I'm sure we will see an uptick. And just a little, since we're going to be doing this again, just a little bit of background information. I know that Marion had asked about the doors, for trash. And I'm curious if that makes a difference. If there's a facility that you guys can, pass on to us that we can go check out that has doors on it versus one that's open like ours, to see if that makes a difference. Anyway, Gary Clark.
Yeah, Gary Clark, 46 Laurelwood Drive. Just a couple of quick points. He's talking about municipal waste coming from Madison, Guilford, Clinton, Westbrook. Do those towns have a trash facility now that trash can go to, or does it all for some reason have to end up in Deep River?
Yeah. They do not currently have their own facilities. No, they do have town transfer stations that some of them do take MSW, I believe, but most of them do not.
Right, so their municipal waste cannot go to their own towns, is what I'm asking?
They do not have a facility equipped to accept it.
All right, so they don't have a facility you're trying to move into our town.
I wouldn't say move into your town. It was a permit that was already handed down.
Right, but again, you're trying to, I guess, move a horse, but it just because you're saying that you've already got a permit, that's fine, but we're trying to negotiate or come up with a substantial solution to what we already have, correct?
Correct. Yes, we are here to negotiate and see what we could do to mitigate any problem factors.
All right, so we're talking about bringing somebody else's municipal waste in because they don't want it in their town?
So
I can't speak for the town of other people.
Right, but you're the one that hauls it in, correct?
No, we operate the facility.
So who hauls it in then?
There's other companies that haul it in. Do we have our own trucks on the road? Yes, but there's a multitude of companies.
Right,
That's a
so,
problem.
but again, who's gonna profit from moving the garbage from another town to our town?
The benefits are gonna be to the constituents of Connecticut to have a lesser cost to dispose of when you're utilizing a facility close by, and it also helps with the carbon footprint from an environmental standpoint.
Right, carbon footprint in another town, but not our town, correct?
Well, carbon footprint is for the whole state.
But I'm talking about you hauling everybody else's garbage into our town. It doesn't do well for us, but everybody else.
I think it benefits everybody, including.
How does it benefit everybody? It's not, if it benefited everybody, this would not be a conversation we're gonna have, correct?
I don't understand the question.
How do you not understand the question? If this were to benefit every Deep River Town resident, we wouldn't have a public hearing, correct?
Well, I think that the public hearing is just a course of action. Well, how it's gonna benefit the town is also it brings business into the town. We're paying taxes to the town. It does benefit the town from a financial standpoint as well, correct?
Again, you're.
And we also offer the town to dispose of their material at us as well. That is a fact.
Right, so you're gonna take our trash for nothing?
Not for nothing, but you guys actually have a premium rate. You have the lowest rate.
No, we
But
don't.
but a premium rate doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just saying, but you're taking everybody else's trash, bringing it into our town, and now we have a rat problem around town, which I guess you say is not a rat problem, but that's okay. And we're sitting there now talking about a benefit. It's not a benefit.
Okay.
So can I add to
Yep.
that, Tony?
No, yeah, hold on one second,
Oh, sorry,
please.
Gary. Go
All right,
ahead.
that's all right. Tony, thank
Yep.
you very much for letting me speak. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome, Gary.
If I might add something to that,
Guys,
This-
I gotta cut you off. You gotta go in order. There's people with their hands up that have been waiting. So if you would just throw your hand up and wait your turn, please. John Jaskowski, looks like you're up.
I'll speak after the public, Tony. I just have a note for the commission.
Okay. I'm gonna take your hand down then. Alan?
I just wanted to add a clarification to that question about where it's coming from. I believe it is not coming from Deep River because we have in our ordinances a designated facility in Essex. So there is no cost benefit to the Deep River public in the equation unless we change our ordinances.
I think we have don't we have just signed a contract with Mira also for another year, which is the Essex facility? Okay, I thought so.
So, just to clarify that, your
Yep.
bulky waste does come to us.
Ah,
Not the MSW, not the trash, but
Yep.
all bulky open top containers come to our facility.
okay.
And the town was looking to bring us the trash as well,
Yep.
but wanted to settle this issue.
I see. All right, well,
When
thank you.
did that go out to bid?
To be honest, that's been this way since I came to this company.
All right, Christine, you got your hand up?
Yep. So I just want to clear, these trucks, these are multiple companies bringing in trash to your facility. I heard Westbrook. Are these roll-off containers?
Their roll-off containers are involved, yes.
Okay. So what I hear is somebody coming from Westbrook. What they're going to do is they're going to take all the back roads, which means they're going to come down a residential neighborhood, Union Street, because they can't make the corner at the light. So I mean, I just want that to be put out there that I'm really concerned that this is going to increase the truck traffic in a residential, partially residential neighborhood.
Okay. All right, thank you, Christine. Looks like Susie's iPad's up.
yes.
Susie, can you just give me your last name? I'm sorry, just everybody, I have everybody else's.
It's Huybens, Huybens.
Thank you.
And I prefer to be called Sue.
Sorry, Sue.
Sue, yes. This reminds me of when the equine crematorium wanted to come here. And the whole town decided that it would not benefit Deep River for people to bring their horses from outside Deep River and want to get rid of them here. And this is exactly to the point that older gentleman was making about how this benefits our town. And the bottom line is, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Just like the equine crematorium would not. And so I have to agree with him. This does not benefit our town. It may benefit the state and our residents just obliquely, but it really doesn't benefit our town. And I think increasing what they do will not benefit our town. But I think that the issue is to look for sites in other parts of the state where this could be done and build them there, not here. I mean, this I think is as good as it's going to get here. Okay? So I think, let's leave this as it is and then look for other places in the state where they can build other ones. That's my, okay?
Thank you.
Who's the older gentleman?
That wasn't you, Ellen.
No, it wasn't. It was some other guy who got very frustrated at the end.
Oh, you sure it wasn't Ellen? Steve, you got your hand up. I'm sorry.
Sounds like it was me, Tony.
Ah, the older gentleman. Gotcha.
Yes, it was. It was him.
Please, Steve, take over.
I have a question for the applicants related to the traffic analysis documents that were submitted. There's a differentiation made in the analysis, the original one that was submitted, between the different types of trucks that were entering the facility, and basically the ones that are the types of trucks that are currently entering the facility, which it states are smaller, around 5-ton capacity vehicles that are bringing those roll-off containers. And then it explains that there's some front load or rear load packer trucks that are to be bringing the municipal solid waste, or are anticipated to be bringing the municipal solid waste. And it explains that it anticipates an increase of whatever it is, 8 ingoing and outgoing trips in the AM peak hour, some similar amount in the PM peak hours. I was wondering if you could just provide kind of a summary of the analysis provided there, and give me some clarification as to what the different types of vehicles are and how this proposes to change with the introduction of the solid waste.
Certainly. Right now, we looked at the trips in July and looked at primarily the 2 of the busiest days in July. And as was mentioned last time, Ian, as part of the analysis, you're correct. There's generally roll-off dumpsters, generally handle the construction and demolition material we discussed, and the packer trucks, whether they're front load or rear load. Most of them are front load now, or if they're one arms, they're side load, but they're basically similar looking on the road. Those that handle MSW generally have higher payloads, but there are also tractor trailer trucks that are used for the outbound material, because the whole purpose of the transfer station is to consolidate the material into the larger tractor trailer trucks that have the highest payload to go to distant places or to markets. Generally, those, depending upon the type of tractor trailer, carry payloads of in the 22 to 25 ton, depending upon the type of truck. So those days, as it's operating right now, those 2 busier days at 51, and I'm not talking about the local. There are some local contractors that come here, say, that are doing work to somebody's bathroom that may come in a pickup truck. But when we're talking about the big trucks, which is by weight, most of the material. There was a day early in July that had 51 materials bringing 51 trucks, trips come inbound with material and 6 tractor trailers that day outbound. And then on another, the actual busiest day for the month was 56 inbound inbound collection vehicles or route vehicles, either roll-offs or packers, and 8 outbound tractor trailers. So what the point of what I said last time is generally there are fewer trucks needed to hit a certain limit when with MSW, because the payloads are essentially always or nearly always higher. There are a few roll-offs that show up once in a while that may have a lot of rubble in it, and so those may be 10 or 12 tons. If there's a lot of tile or old cinder blocks or something like that. So in the future, with more MSW, so we would expect fewer trucks to hit the capacity. But as was pointed out, there hasn't been a limit set on one or the other. And so what we had looked at was 320 of the 600 tons, which is what's allowed by the state permit. We had looked at a breakdown of 320 of that being MSW and 280 being demo, because the facility for a long time has been, in the early years, was operated with only demo and recyclables coming in, and it was generally operating in the 150 to 200 tons a day, and those were essentially all roll-offs, except for some of the trucks would be packers that bring cardboard in, because those are a roll-off type of truck, but it's not the same as a dumpster. It may be at a department store where they pack in the cardboard, but that container still rolls on here and comes in with some pre-consolidated, I'll call it, cardboard. So there are a variety of trucks coming in there now. There are roll-offs. There are some packers. We'd expect in the future there to be more packers with MSW.
Okay, thank you. And if I may, just for another second, Tony, does your current DEP permit regulate the amount? And maybe you already said this, but does it regulate the amount of MSW versus the amount of bulky waste, or is that your proposal under this special permit? That it be broken down into 320, 280?
The deep permit doesn't have a breakdown.
Is that your proposal then under this permit to break it down into 280 C and D and 320 MSW? I just heard you say that.
Yes, that's a realistic breakdown. We're not looking to take it more than that on the MSW side.
Is that good, Steve?
Thank you.
Looks like Nick Olson, you're up.
Yeah, I think I heard you mention before that they are set to close the Mira station on the border in Essex. Is that correct?
That's correct. They don't have an end date, but it's on the chopping block.
Is it really? I didn't know.
So there is no end date, but it is on the chopping block.
Yeah, apparently that's not working out so well.
What we can say with certainty is that the ultimate destination of the material that was going to Essex, the Mid-Connecticut Waste to Energy plant, was shut down last month, and that was accepting and combusting 2,500 tons a day for about the last 30 years.
Their location over the current location that you guys are running is it's very user friendly to your truckers. It's a direct route right onto exit 4. on off over the railroad tracks right there, and it's in its own little world. You know, closing that is going to be a big loss and a resource to all the surrounding towns. And, you know, I don't know if, you know, we could reopen one there. You guys could open one there as a better destination, you know, for real estate, as opposed to this location. But whatever happens, not having either location being able to take in, you know, curbside garbage is going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, Stan, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, when you did that study on those days, heavy days, when you said there was 51 trucks, do you know the total volume tonnage for that day that you dealt with? Just so I have an idea of like if you're increasing.
Yeah, basically, I think they were those 2 days, one was about, if I recall correctly, 270 and the other one was about 285 or so on that order of magnitude.
So you want to go to 600 tons, so.
Yeah, like I said, we would be just
double
about
that
double.
trouble.
Like I said, we're more than, like we said, we in the traffic report, we said it would just over double the number of trips. Because more of those in the future would be heavier, and you know, I'll just say it again, and I know that the applicants already said that 320 would be a good number on the MSW, but the more MSW to the fewer total trips before the 600 would be hit. But we've been working with the 320 and the 280 as the realistic projection, as Chris said. But if it was actually in terms of truck trips, if it was 350 of MSW and 250 of demo, would actually be a few less trips, because those are, you know, the whole purpose of the transfer station is more efficient transport, and the whole purpose of the people who haul in materials and on the MSW side is to maximize the tonnage on your truck. Whereas on the roll-off container business, it's a different model, because on the trash, you're stopping at many stops to fill up your truck. With a roll-off, you're basically dropping your roll-off at somebody's house or at a contractor's construction site, and however much they put in there is what you're hauling. I don't know of anybody who makes more than one stop with the roll-off. It's the roll-off is whatever the customer puts in the roll-off is what's in there. Whereas with the front loader packers, you know, on commercial stops, will stop at dozens of stops, and on residential routes, will do several hundred houses to fill the truck.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it. Nobody has a problem with what went on before, prior to the MSW, I'm feeling.
Okay. All right, anybody else? I'm gonna throw this out there. I think we're on number 2. Is anybody else? I know the commission got involved in this. Anybody else from the public? All right, anybody else? All right, so it looks like I gotta get the next date. I apologize.
Tony Gary Clark has his hand up again.
Tony, could I make a comment?
Give me 1 second, and I got nobody's hand up. Gary, go ahead.
I'm all set. I'll wait for the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, Tanner Steves, and Mike, I got you. You're up after him. You there, Tanner?
Tony, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, Tanner Steves, Chairperson, Conservation Inland Wetlands. We did cancel our last meeting, but that was essentially for a lack of agenda items. If the party here needs to come before us, they're welcome to. If they're conducting regulated activity, they can submit an application. If they need some general guidance discussion, feel free to come before us. They can get in touch with Nancy Howard, recording secretary.
Okay.
I'll say thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tanner. Mike, you had your hand up. I'm sorry. Mike?
No, it must have been someone else, Tony. Sorry.
Okay, nope, if you guys are good, looks like, yep, of
Can I just make a quick point?
course, sorry, I forgot you put your hand down, forgot you were up there.
So this is just in relation to Alan's initial question about the non-conforming aspect of this, and I had been looking into this a little bit this week and trying to find under which sections of the regulations this was initially approved, but obviously can't sort of avoid the question that this use, although it's in a industrial zone and was initially approved and approved with modifications 2 times, the specific use is not currently in the zoning regulations. So therefore it's a non-conforming use. If I'm not mistaken, Tony, if you could put up the site plan, just by way of clarification to the applicants, there is no physical structural expansion of the facility, any of the buildings proposed by this application, are there?
No, there's not. That's correct.
Okay, so Tony, this would be, I think in my opinion, and again, I'm not your attorney, that if there is no physical structural expansion, this is not technically an expansion of the nonconformity. It is going to become busier by their proposal, but this is sort of what you kind of call the baby elephant problem. That if so for instance, if you allow a gas station at some point in an industrial zone and then outlaw gas stations, and this gas station that's pre-existing non-conforming starts charging 10 cents less per gallon, and all of a sudden lots of people want to go to that gas station, you can't fault the gas station.
Right.
And that's if they're not adding a whole new suite of pumps or something like that. It's not an expansion. It's just they're becoming busier, a business that is legally there. So obviously it's their burden to demonstrate that they're not creating significant adverse consequences in terms of traffic and odor and things like that. But they're allowed to continue and be a successful business. That would be the point I want to make about that.
Okay.
I agree with that take.
Tony, can I interject?
Yep, please.
John, I was at the meetings when the initial, I believe it was Tenerillo, started this facility back when, and it was specifically approved only for C&D. We were told it was a recycling facility. And I don't know when or how it ever got turned around to allow MSW to be brought in, but that was not part of their original approval.
Right, that's why they're before us now.
Well, no, because they're doing it now. They're bringing in MSW now. How did that ever come about that they were doing it in the first place? It was only supposed to be C&D recycling.
I can't tell you why they started. I can only tell you that they're here now.
Well, the thing is, they're here now on something that we never approved in the first place that they've been doing.
That's why they're asking for this permission.
Well, the town, at the time, everybody protested and said no.
Okay.
And we've heard some of that today as well.
All right. Well, with that being said, I think there's still a couple things that we need.
Marion, sorry.
Tony?
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
Nobody's hand is showing up all of a sudden. I'm sorry.
Well, it's because, anyway, a couple of quick things. Did anybody ever check on the fact that there should be doors, or could there be doors on the back of the facility? I think you mentioned it, but there wasn't an answer. We got the Holleran and Sage opinion letter fairly late. When I read through it, some of it actually was more confusing than I thought. And I won't make a joke about lawyers, but so I'm still confused whether, I know that the physical part has to conform to our current regulations. John mentioned the use. I understand that also and concur. So I still am confused whether or not we can actually regulate the municipal solid waste portion of this.
My take on Attorney Slater's letter is that the statute that was referenced by the applicant last meeting, and I'm gonna have to bring up the letter so I don't miscite it. It's 22A. Where is it? 22A 208, which is that towns cannot outright prohibit solid waste facilities, but they have zoning authority to regulate them, is my take on the bottom line.
Okay.
Doors.
Okay, so I have a question then. I mean, are we good? Do we need more input? I mean, is everybody comfortable, or are we still looking for answers? Do we want answers on the doors, the odor? I think there was one other thing.
I think, I mean, I know that they've been seeking sort of an answer about wetlands.
Yes, that was
Back almost a month ago, I had put, the applicant in contact with Mark Ryer, the wetlands officer, and had a very informal conversation with him. That again, they're not adding anything structurally and not expanding. So it wasn't clear that there was jurisdiction, and he didn't seem to indicate that, but I don't want to quote him, and I don't believe he responded to the email. But it would be nice to have some sort of clarification on it.
So since Tanner's on here, you haven't left, have you, Tanner?
Nope. Can you hear me, Tony?
I can. So is there any way you can push Mr. Ryer to get us an answer on this?
Sure. I can give you a very basic, broad answer, and then yes, it would be better to have an answer from Mr. Ryer. Essentially, if you're conducting regulated activity, you need to submit an application, and if you're not, then you don't. So I know that's sort of broad, but based on the way the regs are written, that's it's intentionally broad.
Yeah.
So the specific activity that's going to occur needs to be described, and if that is considered regulated by us, then it would need an application, and if it's not, it doesn't. So essentially, it needs to sort of a detailed description of what's happening would need to be given before we could make that sort of formal determination. I mean, sometimes it's very easy to do, and folks just don't come before us because it's obviously not regulated activity. But there are cases, perhaps like this, where it's a bit of a blurred line. So I would say, though, if the construction of the facility is completely in place and there's no additional construction that's going on, then that leads me to think, and don't quote me, that maybe there is no regulated activity. But say there's a drastic increase in stormwater, or potentially dirty stormwater that's going into an adjacent wetland, then that could be considered regulated activity. So those are the sorts of I guess, things that would need to be described and potentially discussed.
Yeah, I think that's what we're after.
The storage of dumpsters
Yep.
outside, it looked like Google Earth, I couldn't tell, but those little rectangle things looked like dumpsters. And obviously there was no, I don't know what the distance was from the storage of those dumpsters to the pond. Lower right-hand side. Yeah. If those dumpsters are dirty, would that be something that possibly could be regulated?
If I'm looking at this correctly, I think again, this is the other parcel. I think this is 500 Commercial Drive. This is 400. I'm probably messing the addresses up. I think this is the 500 parcel and this is the 400 parcel.
Okay, so who owns those dumpsters?
They do, but it's a separate parcel.
Okay,
Which is, well, I kind of think why we're chasing Mark Ryer around for this.
okay.
Gary Clark, you got your hand up, and then I'm gonna move this along because there's still a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
All right, no, I understand that, Tony, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but I always thought the town's process was you had to apply with wetlands first, and even if it was nothing, they signed it and sent it to planning and zoning. Is that not correct?
That's where we're trying to get a hold of Mr. Ryer. He's
Well, I mean, Ryer or not, doesn't matter, but they haven't applied with wetlands at all, correct?
So it goes to Mark Ryer and he either refers it to the commission because it is an activity, or he signs off for us.
All right, and Tanner's here, right, Tanner?
Yep.
All right,
I am.
Gary Clark, just wondering, is he doesn't want to get involved, or he just hasn't responded?
I can't answer that. I'm guessing it's just an issue of the non-response. I don't think it's
All
an
right, no,
issue of
that-
wants to or not.
I understand. I'm just trying to put this to bed. That's all.
No, that's a good question. I will say that I think this is sort of a very tricky case in sort of our town process, because typically it's, well, an application to develop. I mean, in this instance, it's sounds like I'm not even exactly, you would be able to describe it better than I, but it's an application for some sort of special exemption to existing zoning laws. It's not an application necessarily to build or develop, which is why it doesn't necessarily fit into our typical workflow very well.
Right.
And I understand that and I appreciate that, but I'm just wondering why we're to this point if we haven't even gone by the first point yet. That's all.
So Gary, I mean, it does happen. The application's in front of us, which is why we can't close the hearing without Mark's input.
All right, no, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Thanks. All right, guys.
Tony, one
Yep.
other question really quickly.
Yes, Brett.
Now, where those dumpsters are is not the same parcel of property.
Correct.
Is that, who owns those dumpsters?
Same owners, different properties.
So they're expanding that business onto another property. Is that property zoned for the activity that they're using it for to support the business at 400? Or are they just pulling the wool over our eyes and just expanding without expanding?
Gonna have that answer for the next meeting. All right, guys, I think they have their lists. I think we're still waiting on some answers here. So with that, I'm gonna look for a motion to continue this to the September 15th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Marion. Oh, thanks, Fred. Second. Mike?
Yes.
Jonathan?
I think Jonathan's gone.
Okay, Alan? Everybody leave? Alan?
Yes, sorry. I was
Thanks.
muted.
No worries. Stan?
Yes, sir.
And that's it. All right, guys, see you September 15th.
September
Tony?
15th.
Yes.
Sorry, let's check the date on that for a second.
Oh,
Is that one of the months we have a different date up for our meeting?
give me a second.
I'm looking too.
When I remember is St. Patrick's Day, so.
Let's see.
Cheers.
Now, of course, the calendar doesn't work. Okay, there's nothing on there.
Nothing on there?
Yeah, the town site doesn't.
Try the boards and commissions. I think.
Zoning. Meeting schedule, regular meeting. September 8th. Look at that. You are correct.
Okay.
All right, I will. It's an
Tony,
early.
is there any possibility that they can get into inland wetlands in advance of our meeting? And is it possible that they could hold a special meeting to accommodate?
Tanner? Thank God he showed up. Huh?
Yeah, our September meeting is, I believe, the 8th. And so what was the meeting that you were hoping to have them come to? Is the 8th before that meeting?
Both of ours are on the 8th.
Oh, and then you always take precedent, so I guess we have to switch. Is that right, Nancy? So, or,
No.
well, it doesn't necessarily make sense for us to meet on the same night if this is potentially
No,
an issue.
because wetlands is always the same, the second Thursday. P and Z has always been the third Thursday, but because of one of the holidays, that's why it was adjusted. So one of the commissions, or if P and Z changed at this point, it would have to be a special date. Either commission.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess I would also just wait to hear from the applicant. I mean, if they have something to bring to us too, then we could entertain the idea of a special meeting, but it's still not crystal clear exactly what they would bring to us. So if they're prepared with something to bring to us, we could potentially host. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I think that we have an internal unavailability on the 8th. So I don't know how we handle that with your commission. I don't think we can do it on the 8th, is what I'm saying.
For planning and zoning, for anything.
For anything.
Our engineers are not.
All right, we will be, we'll have to have a special meeting because we'll be out of time, I believe. Do we have a time frame for this, guys, or do we know when the public hearing was open? It was in June, was it not?
Public hearing was opened on July,
Oh, it's July, okay.
but you would need an extension granted from the applicant
To go beyond,
to go beyond this meeting. 30 you have 35 days to close.
oh, you're right, all right. And it's the 15th, a holiday.
The 15th is a holiday?
I believe so. That's why we didn't pick the 15th.
What's the holiday?
There was a reason why, and I can't remember.
I was gonna say, I don't have my calendar in front of me. It might have been a Jewish holiday. I know Rosh Hashanah and they're in that kind of vicinity.
Well, how about this? If we do the 4th Thursday, which is the 22nd, would everybody be okay with a special meeting for the 22nd? And go ahead.
It does not appear to be. I'm just checking with the holidays. It does not appear to be.
I don't think
It's Costa
15th.
Rica Independence Day, but I don't know if we're celebrating that.
The 15th or the 22nd?
15th.
First day of Hispanic Heritage Month.
Okay. If everybody's all right with moving it to the 3rd Thursday, like it normally is?
Fine.
So that's that's September 22nd?
September 15th.
September 15th, yes.
good for me.
Good for me.
Okay, we'll have to. And you guys are granting us the extension? Go to the 15th?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, so Nancy, we have to repost that or republish that, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, thanks.
It is,
John?
Tony, it is Butterscotch Cinnamon Pie Day. So
See, I knew it.
yeah, that might have been, Alan usually takes
Could
that
have
day
been it.
off.
Yeah.
I am usually traveling on that day.
All right. So we voted. Yeah, we voted. We're good. On to item C. Text amendment application to revise sections 4.23 and 7B17 regarding social clubs. Applicant Scandinavian United Society. Is there an agent applicant here to give us a little rundown? And we'll see what I can do about getting some maps up. Anyone?
And I would just note, I saw the Swede Club here earlier.
I did too.
They are, again, this is a text amendment. It is not an application regarding any particular property, just to clarify that.
Okay. Anybody? Let's see if they're in here and just unmute.
They are looking for.
Hey, this is Randy from the Sweet Club.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So, so basically what we're looking to do is just amend the regulations, just because there was nothing in the regulations when they were adopted back in 1972. And we're just looking to continue as we are over the course of the last 60 years or so, as we've been. So we're trying to just continue forward, just to be, you know, within the regulations and go from there.
So if I might, Tony?
Yes, please.
So just as a question of clarification, again, because as a non-conforming use, you are allowed to continue as you are. The commission and the town would have no problem with allowing that. The reason that there would be a need for amendment to the regulations is if you were looking for it to expand the physical operation, the physical facility.
Right. Yes, correct. We're eventually looking to build a pavilion out on site, and in order to do so, obviously we need to conform with the regulations.
Okay. All right. Commission members, you guys got anything? You got questions, comments, concerns?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alan, you're up.
Yeah, I think the applicant stated there's nothing in the regulations that addresses social clubs, but in fact there is. Social clubs are allowed in the commercial district and the village commercial district per our regulations. So there is a provision for that use in town.
Okay. I agree. Mary, you were up, you want to say something?
I'm showing my ignorance here. I couldn't find a definition of social club in the definitions. So do we have one
I don't
of
think
what
we
a
do.
social club is? Do we have some parameters, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Right. So, I mean, generally speaking, this is John Guskowski. If the term is not specifically defined in our zoning regulations, we would use, you know, whatever standard authoritative, you know, if there's a definition in Webster's dictionary or New American Dictionary or something like that. But yeah, this seems to be a bit of a term of art, and it might be worthwhile to add a definition.
So, one of the veterans associations, American Legion, that would be considered a social club, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Like a book discussion, chess club.
Yeah, the club refers to either the people or the location.
All right. So I'm gonna, I mean, if anybody else from the commission before I jump in. Okay, so I do have a couple of concerns about this. This is, I mean, we're looking to permit this in an R30 zone, which is a moderate residential zone. So we want to, it looks like, you know, the social clubs within residential zones, the consumption of food and alcohol permitted within a fenced-in area, and accessory structures for use located within the setback line there. So there's not so much that, but basically we wanted to bring social clubs, and I know you guys are already there, but you want to expand that use in a residential neighborhood, and that's, I mean, it is setting a precedence that I'm not thrilled about, but you know, that's how I'm leaning with this one. So if there's anybody else from the commission, if not, I'm going to open it up to the public.
So Tony, we do have other non-conforming social clubs existing in Deep River, in other zones, in other residential zones, in other less populous residential zones, including Sobieski, which is in a low density residential. There are hunting and fishing clubs that are in the very low density residential. So I think part of the discussion is the needs to revert to when the zoning regulations were put in place, and there was a deliberate allowance of social clubs in the commercial district, and it suggests that there was a deliberate exclusion of the social club from residential and, in my opinion, potentially more densely populated residential. That it wasn't in fact an omission, but a deliberate zoning strategy, I think, in order to accommodate the uses with comparable functions and patterns of use, et cetera. So, and I think the distinction with a social club is that it is a food and a drink establishment, and we do have, you know, comparable uses to that in other zones. So I think that's got to be the context of the discussion. So when we look at the proposition here, it would allow a private club, private eating and drinking club, in all of these moderate density areas. It's not an exception for a single user. So that includes the areas down by the harbor district. So it'd be down on River Road and River Drive, parts of Elm, kind of throughout the moderate density area. So the implications aren't just to this particular neighborhood. It's for the highest density residential neighborhoods throughout Deep River. I don't know if you want to bring up a map that would clarify the extent of that residential zone, but that should be the context of the discussion.
I agree. While I'm digging up the map, I'm going to let Nick Olson, is from the public. So go ahead, Nick.
Hey, I'm a member down at the Swede Club. It's a great community outreach for Deep River. A lot of great people down there. But I think most importantly, when they're saying, it's an expansion of the Swede Club, we call it the Swede Club, the Scandinavian Society. They're not adding more members. They're not expanding their network. They're not bringing in more seats. It's as simple as, they know they're non-conforming. They want it to be legitimate on paper. They're working towards getting a nice outdoor, patio area for the warmer months, with landscaping and fencing and all that stuff. But when we say expanding, we're not trying to double our capacity, they're not changing their capacity at all. They're just trying to have everything be black and white with the zoning office.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Anybody else from the public?
Okay. I had note that there were a couple of emails submitted.
Okay, I'm just gonna scroll this up. So quickly, that is, I believe, the Sobieski Club. You guys can see that. Okay, so that's the, did I click on the right one? Nope, I did not.
They're going to be lot 71. Yep.
So that's their location there. But it is, again, not site specific. In the change in regulation would include all of R30, which is this nice orange color. It looks like I just missed it. And again, would include all the way down to, down to the landing. Doug, you have your hand up, and I'm going to dig up these letters. Go ahead, Doug. You there? All right. If you guys are good with the map, I'm going to flip back to the letters. Somewhere in this file. So there was a letter from Carol Hanover, please accept this email as documentation of support for the text amendment application submitted by the Scandinavian United Society. My husband and I own 3 properties on Riverview Avenue, 32, 28, and 16, and find the applicant a responsible and respectful neighbor with no specific concerns about your amendment. And there's one other, attention John Skowski. As a lifelong resident Deep River and homeowner of 30 Riverview Avenue, we would like to have our support of the text amendment application considered. The United Scandinavian Society has always been a respectful neighbor, and we have never had any concerns or complaints. Daniel and Karen Moore. And Doug, you giving it a shot? If not, I'm going to move on to Gary Clark.
Can you hear me? This is Doug Whitaker.
Should, yeah.
All right, super. All right, this is Doug Whitaker. I live at 165 Essex Street. But I did live at 11 Riverview Avenue, across from the Sweet Hall for 20 years. And I would like to register my opposition to this change. And I think many of the things I was going to say that Alan said, and I think he put it very well. This is a change to all of R30 zoning. And I agree with what Alan said. This was not an oversight at the time that the zoning was adopted. There are specific zones where this is allowed. The Scandinavian Club is a non-conforming use. I understand that they have certain rights based on that non-conformity, but the zoning regulations as they're written address that. They address what steps they need to go through for any changes that they want to propose. I'd also like to say that, in 1972, when they were adopted, social clubs were excluded from R30 for a reason. They're not residential. They're essentially businesses. All the issues that come with commercial properties that, as Alan said, serve food and drink. There's traffic, there's noise, there's deliveries, deliveries early in the morning, deliveries late at night, parking on the street, speeding, whatever. It's a commercial use. And, the townspeople at the time that the zoning regulations were adopted, made the decision that these should be located in certain zones within the town, and R30 was not one of them. And I don't think that we should give some blanket change to allow this use in R30 zones within the town, wherever. I don't think that was the intent. I don't think that's a change that the townspeople want. That's certainly not the change that I want. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Gary Clark?
Yes, Gary Clark, 46 Laurelwood Drive, again. I mean, I understand everybody's concern about it being, not regulated now, but the Scandinavian Club has been there for a long time, and the Scandinavian Club has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for good charities, fundraisers. It's an incredible organization that I believe our community needs. And I don't know what they're trying to do, but there was a lot more down there than there is now, and they're doing their best to conform, and they're asking for permission to help them conform. So that's my 2 cents, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Gary. To give you, not to give Gary too much of a hard time, but it's not so much specifically them. It reverberates through a huge portion of town, and that's kind of the problem. You could be, we could open them on Essex Street. Like I said, it missed my property by a little bit, but I could have had my own club. It's all down Union Street.
Hey, I would have gone to your club.
See? But it affects a very large portion of town, and I think that's kind of, we really have to consider that. Nick, you're up.
Would this fall under maybe then just a special permit for the exact property?
Go ahead.
What I'd suggest is, well, there are a couple of routes here. If you'd like to make something sort of specific to this property as an expansion of a nonconformity, the one route is the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is precisely the board that would deal with expansion of nonconformities. Alternatively, the commission could consider a less, well, simultaneously a less and a more broad-ranging text amendment in their section on nonconformities, which I believe is section 15 of the zoning regs, that would allow, some percentage volumetric expansion, kind of, as I mentioned earlier, sort of the baby elephant problem that, a nonconforming use that's been there for decades and happens to be successful or have some need for some limited volumetric expansion might be able to do that under certain circumstances. And that's something that could be built in to the non-conforming portion of the regulations, that would basically only apply to circumstances such as this, where a use has been there for decades, and not to encourage the potential for new clubs to pop up all over the R30, for instance.
Here.
That's very well said.
Sweet Club, you got your hand up?
Yeah, so we all agree with everyone, what everyone's saying, but obviously it was very basic there, but what if this would be something that we can go to pre-existing social clubs, to where it would only allow the Sobieski Club and the Sweet Club to just exist as they were, and then to continue forward?
That's basically what John just said.
But it would essentially, again, the Sweet Club and Sobieski Club, nobody is doubting your rights to exist and to continue to exist.
Right.
The question on the table is, can you physically expand? And nobody's questioning, if you get more members in that same space, God bless you. But it's a question of physical volumetric expansion within the non-conforming facility. And that's really the question at hand.
Nick?
Does this kind of, cross over to our last topic of discussion about the trash hub, where we're not changing the use, we're not doing anything, and even though it's non-conforming underneath that permit, we can continue to non-conform. So why shouldn't we be able to get a building permit for a patio?
Right. Well, so if I can, it's a slight difference. So the difference is the structural element. The previous application is basically looking to increase their volume of matter that they deal with within the existing footprint, which is just more activity, not more structure. And ultimately, I think what triggered the discussion with you folks and your interest in getting a text amendment is your hopes for structural expansion. And that's the distinction.
Doug? You got your hand up?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I would just like to comment on the last few comments. One of the things I think to consider is that a non-conforming use can continue, if my understanding is correct, with the use at the time that the zoning regulations were put in place. But something like a structure, which invites people, let's say outside, invites music, invites more people, invites parties, I would contend that that's an expansion of the use. That's not the use that was in place at the time that the zoning regulations were put in effect. So I do think that should be, regulated by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think it's an expansion and an intensification of the use that's there. It's not a continuation of the existing use.
Christine, you got your hand up? You there, Christine?
Okay, sorry about that.
No
Is the club still taking new memberships?
Currently we are, but we do have a cap, and we're pretty close to that now.
And what constitutes the cap? Like, how do you
Based
determine?
based on our bylaws, we set a cap in our bylaws, and that's the number that we are capping at.
What's that number?
350.
350. And where are you at right now?
We are sitting at about 330 right now.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Nick, you got your hand up? Sorry, if you're
Yeah,
done.
yeah, we talk about expansion, I get it, expansion, we're changing the outdoor use, we're bringing bands, I guess that's, we think that's what we're doing. But the Swede Club for decades has been doing pig roasts and picnics, hot rod days, they have, motorcycle ride-ins, I mean, they're using the outdoors. We're just trying to stand on concrete. So if it's just a patio, I mean, this is already, we're not expanding the use because it's already taken place. We're kind of just replacing an area from gravel to concrete.
As much as
Does landscaping even fall under us?
it's the expansion of that use to the outdoors. That's that's our problem. And by putting this in the R30 zone, it opens the door to down Essex Street, down Union Street, down quite a few other pieces of property. And that's the hard look that everybody has to take. Because the regulation isn't site specific. We're not looking at the Swede Club. We're looking at all clubs.
Right.
In the 30 zone.
It sounds like we're not like trying to add a bar outside. We're just trying to add a patio.
All right. So I think we're kind of running around in circles here. I don't know how to word this, but I support what they're trying to do, but I don't want it on Essex Street. And that's me. Christine, you got your hand up.
Well, I'm just gonna, I live on Union Street, and when I first moved here over 15 years ago, we had horseshoes, which still there. And over those 15 years, I'm just gonna say that has grown significantly. And so I look at a parking lot, which I didn't plan on moving. So I kind of feel for those residents that are near that club, where if they're going to hear music and I get it if there's events like once a year, twice a year, but that really invites like an every day or every weekend type thing. So that's just, I wanted to share that.
All right, thank you. Alan, you get your hand up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, again, it looks to adopting a permitted use within this moderate density residential zone without special provision either. I mean, we've had experience when we look at a permitted use within a commercial district which abuts a residential neighborhood, and within that special permit application, they got to demonstrate that there's containment of noise and separation of the visibility and light control. We've reviewed commercial applications that were allowed by special permit, and those were provisions that were required. So I think that this text amendment doesn't address the disparity of uses and tries to make the use as of right throughout. And I may be mistaken. I'm not looking at the proposed language, but I think
It would be special exception.
by special exception. So in context of that, I think we would need to explore what additional provisions, because the language that's proposed says with the same setbacks as would be applicable to residential. And I would imagine that there would be, I know that there's parking provisions that are required for that type of use in other districts, which is a limit of 4 spaces per 1,000 square foot of area. So those other nuances of our regulations, I think, need to be explored to make sure that it's equitable with any other comparable use that would be in the context of or abutting a residential district. So I'm sympathetic to the existing use, but I'm cautious about the blanket allowance of it. And I think John has laid out a path which might be a consideration, which would be an exception and not a permission for this type of use throughout. And I think we also need to look at it from the standpoint of these other existing clubs, be it a hunting fishing club that's in a very low density, or the Sobieski, or any other club, be it or association, be it veterans, whatever, and understand that there may be an appropriateness for them to be in a non-commercial area. So maybe there's a consideration of an overlay with very specific regulations. My concern is really driven by the blanket permission and the extent of the neighborhoods that would affect, especially in our moderately, because the moderate density is our highest population areas. So it needs to be considered carefully, I think.
John, I hate to put you on the spot, but could you run us through how we could do this differently? So it's not the entire R30 zone and just specifically existing uses and expansions?
Yeah, so what I would propose, if you, I don't know if you have the regs up there somewhere, Tony, but in I believe section 15 of the zoning regs is our non-conforming uses and structures section. It could be some specific language about within, maybe under 15.2 non-conforming uses that, for non-conforming uses that have been in, continuous use for 50 years, whatever, you could pick a number and a circumstance that would make sense and allow for a physical expansion of the facility and I'm going to pull something out of the air, but it's based on a Woodstock town regulation that is allowed to have a 20% volumetric expansion based on the available remaining square footage of the property. So essentially, if you got 5,000 square feet of building on a 10,000 square foot lot, you could basically expand another 1,000 square feet, without needing a variance. So it kind of carves out, again, sort of the baby elephant question: do you allow something that's been there for a long time to get a little bit bigger, and so basically set the parameters like that.
Okay.
And I also, and ceding the time, I know Marion keeps trying to raise her hand, but it goes away because she's not raising her hand correctly. She's applauding rather than raising her hand, which goes away. But Marion, I'll cede the floor to you.
I was wondering why that kept happening.
Yeah, I was too. Okay. You can tell I use Zoom a lot. Actually, I concur a lot with Alan, but I concur with John in terms of that might be a way of allowing something. Initially, I was going to say, I think they have like 1.8 acres.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if that patio was like in a setback or something.
Right.
And I guess maybe it also depends on what the definition of structure is, because usually patios aren't considered structures.
No, it wasn't really the patio. It was a pavilion they were going to put on the patio, I believe, was the issue.
Oh, okay. Well, the pavilion definitely is a structure, but I think that might be a better way of going about it, because the zoning commission could then do conditions.
Right.
Bans only 4 times a year or whatever, on a case-by-case basis. Because I agree, having social clubs throughout the R30, it could be more of a headache. I also know that John was always complaining about the noise. whether it was there or not. Some people, really bothers them. So anyway, that's it.
Okay.
My 2 cents.
I got a member of the audience. Doug, go ahead. You get your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to, listen to what the comment was just made by John, and I'm looking at section 15.2, and 15.2 is written basically, to not promote more nonconformity. It says that you can basically do things that make things more conforming, and I don't think anything we've talked about here would tend to make things more conforming to the R30 use. So I get a little concerned that we're even contemplating like carving out some type of exemption to make something only a little bit more non-conforming. The intent of the zoning regulations and the grandfathered in non-conformities is to say, you can do what you've been doing since 1972, but you can't make it any more non-conforming. And I think that's pretty clear. I think it's pretty clear in, Connecticut case law. And everything that we've talked about, I think, though, is moving in the other direction. It's moving it towards being, just a little bit more non-conforming. And I think that would be concerning to me.
All right. If I could offer a rebuttal to that, so over the last 2 years, I think we've thrown quite a bit of this out the window. Under COVID rules, they were allowed to have outside everything. So they've had most of this going on already. Is that considered a use now that they've had it outside for 2 years? So I think that's why everyone's considering, some of this. I don't know whether that makes it right or wrong, but I think,
I would also, the commission may want to look at the property and see exactly what the pavilion is, what the patio is. Everybody has a different idea in their head of what a patio is and what a pavilion is.
Yeah.
And I would suggest going out there and you can see for yourselves if it really is a patio or a pavilion or not.
So at the moment, it's not site specific. This is regarding the whole R30 zone. So which is why we're trying to say, hey, if there are existing non-conforming uses out there and if they have done this for the last 2 years, how can they continue to do so? So I think where we're headed, and I don't mean to give this away, but I think where we're headed is to maybe deny what we have in front of us and make them come back with something slightly different. Or I could be wrong. The commission could go totally the other way and be in favor of this. Nick, go ahead.
I'm gathering, it sounds like maybe it's a special permit you're asking, or your special permit request?
So it sounds like it would be a special permit for under section 15.2, and 15.2 would be slightly revised how John kind of worded it.
It would be a two-step process, similar to what you're doing right now. You're trying to change the regulations and then apply for a special permit. I think what we're suggesting perhaps is that you should look at adjusting a different part of the regulations rather than allowing social clubs in R30, that that the commission may be more interested in seeing an adjustment to the adjustment of existing non-conforming uses. So a different text amendment.
All right. So if you guys have taken in enough information and the public is okay with this, unless you guys have any more input, I'll do the 3 times.
I got one more question. So if it's a non-conforming club and they adopted the COVID protocol of allowing outdoor patio usage because of COVID, would that be coming under the umbrella of a non-conforming property and we don't even have to do this?
No, the state statute is quite clear that COVID allowances do not create an existing precondition.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to look to close the public hearing, but before I do so, anyone from the commission need any more information? And anybody from the public wish to speak in favor, against, any neutral? Anyone in favor, against, neutral? One more time. Anybody from the public in favor, against, or neutral? All right, hearing none, then entertain a motion to close the public hearing for item C.
Motion to
moved.
close.
Oh, I think Mike beat you by a hair there, Marion. You gonna second it?
Okay. Yes.
All right. Fred,
I agree.
thank
Close
you.
it.
Alan,
Yes.
and Stan.
Yes.
Thank you. And I looked through and didn't see Jonathan on here anymore, so I think he did drop off. On to item D, text amendment application to revise section 4.16, prohibit use to add new 4.16.8 recreational cannabis retail establishment, applicant Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission. All right, let me get that up on the screen. Actually, the only thing I have in the file here is not the actual denial. All I have is a letter.
No, if you go to August hearing.
Yep.
If you go to August hearing, the actual application document is right there.
I see.
It's just that handwritten 3 lines there.
Okay. I was also gonna, there's a letter from EDC, so I was gonna throw that out there. I don't know if you guys read that.
Yes.
Okay, everybody got a chance to eyeball that?
Tony, I think you should read it into the record.
Okay.
I'm not sure everybody has read it at this point.
8/15/2022, regarding the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing Thursday, 8/18. Dear Mr. Baldock, I write you today in response to the legal notice posted on August 11th, 2022 on the town's website, notifying residents of the Planning and Zoning public hearing to approve the prohibition of cannabis retail business in town. We need to be diligent in our efforts to foster inclusivity of the town's voice, while decoupling the agenda and or opinion of a few. Based on Economic Commission's recent survey results, not yet published, we have data that supports such retail opportunities. It is in the opinion of this commission, in line with the town's governance charter, that this decision be referred to public vote for the townspeople to decide the future of its retail offerings. Regards, Nicholas Sternacki, Vice Chair, Deep River Economic Development Commission. All right.
Yeah.
This
I
is
don't
the
know.
commission that didn't attend our joint meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
It seems like, well, I mean, the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't call town votes.
Correct.
And Tony, I would also note in the testimony, there also is a Word document, bit of testimony. In the August, right there, August hearing, testimony.
You're hiding all this stuff. Which one? Letter P and Z or
the prohibit cannabis, that one. So that's
Oh.
another piece of public testimony.
Okay. No, I don't pay for Microsoft, you can tell. So, August 13th, 2020.
I
Susan-
would like to read that.
Okay. You're probably gonna do a better job than I am, so go ahead.
Yes, I probably will. Okay. This is a letter that I wrote dated August 13th. It's to the Planning and Zoning Committee Chair, hi Tony, and
Okay.
member. This is section 4.16.8, prohibited uses to prohibit cannabis retailer and hybrid retailer businesses in all zoning districts. Dear P and Z Chair and members, if added, this new section will result in a ban of legal sales of marijuana across Deep River, even though state law now makes sale of recreational marijuana legal across Connecticut. The ban amounts to a marijuana prohibition in Deep River, similar to historical alcohol prohibition. It denies the eventual future of the town, which will include a free trade in marijuana products. The ban was probably approved because marijuana is thought to be a gateway drug, but studies indicate that it is not. And the study I've linked here, it should be a live link, but I don't know why it isn't, is actually a very good one. It was published in 2021, and it reviews previous studies that have differing outcomes. And it actually calls some of the more positive outcomes biased. And it has other studies where the outcome says that it's not a gateway drug.
And then it notes it's certainly far less than alcohol or cigarettes. Besides, marijuana is only approved for sale to adults over age 21. Yet kids in Deep River, our town, have access to marijuana already via the underground market. The ban is anti-economic development in Deep River. Doesn't the P&Z support adding new businesses in town? The ban ignores huge amounts of cash that a marijuana shop could make and the customers the shop could attract to the town and its businesses. The ban gives tacit approval to the underground market of marijuana in town. To think that there isn't one is pure denial. The local police would welcome a legal marijuana shop since it would lessen their tasks. The ban was probably approved because of concerns about traffic accidents. Please note that driving while under the influence of marijuana is illegal. However, marijuana is associated with far fewer accidents than alcohol. And this NIH study shows that. Okay? And it says people driving under the influence of marijuana are actually more careful than those not. Adding section 4.16.8 won't stop the future. Let's embrace it. Sincerely, me.
Thank you, Sue. All right, I'm gonna close my Microsoft Word before they try and get more money out of me. Okay, gonna open this up for discussion to the commission. You guys have any comments or concerns or any input?
Well, I'll comment to Sue's letter that the vast amounts of money we're going to make. I don't think she's aware of the strings that come with that money. It's not like we can put it on our education budget. And, you know, recently the police chief in Old Saybrook, who is actively against a proposed retail marijuana store in Old Saybrook, and he cited among other things, and it was in the Connecticut Examiner, some of the problems that he's discussed with other police chiefs in other states where marijuana has been legal. It sounds all warm and fuzzy, but you know, even for somebody to say, well, there are fewer traffic accidents with marijuana, yeah, because there are more people drinking than using marijuana because of the illegal aspect of it. So that's not really, I don't think, an accurate point. And I don't think it's really the example that we want to set for our kids to just add something new to get stoned with.
All right, Mike, get your hand up. Thank you. Mike, you're still muted.
Sorry about that.
No, don't worry.
So obviously, you know, my opinion was on record. It wasn't my opinion that we wanted to ban it in town because it's legal and we can't deny that. And I have no denial for anybody to use it. It was just the precedent and the optics for the town of Deep River. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Daniel Smith.
Thank you, Daniel Smith, 631 Winthrop. I've been coming to these meetings consistently since I petitioned Angus to take part. And I do find it fascinating, a lot of discussion that has nothing to do with about regulating, but whether or not it's good or bad or green or blue. I also find it fascinating that at this point, there was more than one survey put out, but then the results came back that the commission didn't like. They've disregarded them altogether. It's like, well, okay, it's 50% may want, but so what? That isn't really a good, you know, why bother? Why bother? I just wanted to comment on that. This has been textbook civics in the making. And I'm curious to see what will happen if it is prohibited. We're trying to avoid being made the center of attention, but it seems to me like that's an invitation to one of the activist groups to have a big get together right on the town green just to help us celebrate the prohibition.
I'm going to take this. I agree with you. I think we put a lot of time and effort into sculpting a fantastic regulation. We had input from everybody we could think of, and then turned around and denied it. But here we are. So, Alan, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo the sentiment, and Daniel, I agree with you entirely. I think the first pass at this, I did advocate for a retail operation in Deep River within a zone which I thought would be appropriate to the public sentiment. I think we've heard from economic development now that indicated that the response to their survey was that there was the public was in favor of this use within Deep River. We don't know the results of their survey yet. I suspect they'll share it with us soon. But the Planning and Zoning Commission also did a survey. The results were presented and discussed. The results were that 70% of the respondents were in favor of this use within Deep River. 40% of them were in favor of it without regulation, without any stipulation that it would be considered regular retail, but with regulations that would be applied to any other controlled substance, alcohol, pharmaceuticals, medications, cigarettes, tobacco, vaping, all those things that are readily available, but are also regulated. And then 30% on top of that said they want that use in town, but with some regulation. And I think that's what we tried to craft, was some regulation that would not make Deep River a destination for cannabis products, that would not present the perception that we're advocating it, especially for to the youth. And I think we had testimony from the Tri-Town Youth Services that said, we can't advocate for this, but if it's a use that the town wants, these are some of the conditions that we think need to be met to make it palatable to youth services, which was restrictions on advertising, restrictions on display of the product, the restrictions on hours of operation. And these were the types of provisions we tried to craft in there. I would say that I don't really have a vested interest in this, in that I'm not a cannabis user. I'll admit I was before it was legal, but that's long ago. But the reality is I do have a vested interest in that. I have children in this town. And I think if we had a cannabis retail operation in town, it would be my preference, because it would be visible to me and to my neighbors and to the other citizens in town. Because by not having a retail operation, it means that our youth, they're not going to try to procure it in town. They're going to go to Saybrook. They're going to go to Middletown. They're going to drive out of town to get it. It's not going to prevent them. But I think it's in my opinion, if we propose appropriate regulations, it shows a responsibility that we are going to control this narrative and not just let it be somebody else's problem. What we've allowed is we say, we're going to allow it to be cultivated in town and sent to other towns, but we won't allow our residents to purchase a legal substance that's regulated by the state and everything else. It's one of those not in my backyard scenarios. I think that we need to listen to the public opinion, as was stated by EDC, as was presented to us in our own survey, and find the path that is the most responsible way to regulate it, by not allowing it in town and saying and prohibiting it. That's not regulating it. It's making it somebody else's responsibility, not ours. So I'll conclude on that.
Thank you, Alan. Christine, you got your hand up?
See, all right. So I was curious to know, was there any ever conversation with Chester and Essex about this?
So John will be the one to know that they're still ongoing, I believe.
Yeah, Chester is actually voting to extend their moratorium. They are sort of running behind. And Essex has a proposal for the, I believe, October public hearing to basically allow by a special permit in limited commercial areas.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's good. And Alan, that was really well put. So that was just my question, and I wanted to support what Alan said.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Stan, you're up.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't know what Chester and Essex are going to do. So if we limit it in our town, because we are the home of the schools for the tri-towns, they can go to Essex or the Chester and not have one in Deep River, even though we will be growing it, yes, but to limit the retail sales in the town that the schools are in is not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Clark, you got your hand up.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. Couple of things. Number one, they were talking about a destination. I don't think a retail facility is going to make Deep River a destination, but again, that's somebody else's words. Marijuana is already legal. So if it's already legal, I think we're better off setting our regulations to regulate what happens in town. And it came up about money not going to, to the Board of Ed. The 3% isn't going to Board of Ed, but it's still going to drug rehabilitation and prevention, which I think is an incredible thing, because right now we don't have a meth store in town. We don't have an obituate store in town, but we still have an issue in town. And that's one thing that we all still need to look at. Not saying that putting a retail store is going to get rid of that, but we need to look at all of that. We need to invest more money in drug prevention and rehabilitation, which I think this could enable us to. I don't have children in school, but I do care about my town. And that's where I think that if we took the, whatever it is, 2, 3, whatever %, and we could invest that in drug schooling fundamentals, it might help a little bit. It's not going to get rid of them, but I've been here my whole life. And it's not going to get rid of it.
Thank you, Gary. Sue, you've got your hand up.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that kids can get weed right here in Deep River from the underground market.
I agree.
They don't have to go to other towns. They can get it right here, right now in Deep River.
So, Christy, I'm going to cut you off for 2 seconds before I forget this, because I feel like, Gary, I'm getting to be the old guy. It might be why Alan raised his hand. We did actually have marijuana in this town. There was a CBD store on Main Street. Just wanted to make sure that was out there too. Christine, go ahead.
So the underground, I mean, has anybody done research around the places, the retail places and their process, right? Like you're not just walking in, purchasing off the shelf. I mean, there's a really intense screening process. Does anybody know or research that?
So the River Cog actually did a walkthrough. So the places that they went to, so you show up at the outside, there's somebody outside and they check your ID. That gets you through the door. You get to the counter. Before you can speak about ordering anything, you have to show your ID again. Then you can tell them what you want. They put it in the bag. You go to the register and again, show your ID. So you have to show your ID 3 times before you even touch the product. Right. Then you make your purchase.
They also limit on how much you can purchase.
Correct.
So as far as kids having access, that would be really difficult. And as we know, right, underground, people buying off the streets is there. And there is such a high risk with the fentanyl issue going on. So, and I love the idea if there's any sales and a percentage going, I think Gary said this, towards prevention. Phenomenal. That's great.
Well, so, I mean, we even had, Youth and Family Services come in here and they gave us a long list of, what they thought was positives and pluses and minuses, if it was approved, how they would go about it. And I think we spent a lot of time on that. But I don't mean to eat up other people's time here. Alan, you get your hand up. Alan?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. I think we're getting a little bit off track in the conversation, saying that allowing a cannabis retail facility is going to provide access to marijuana to children. It doesn't whatsoever.
Right.
It is very restricted. When we talk about, I think Gary said this, we don't have a meth outlet or place to buy, obituates. We do. It's called a pharmacy. And that's a regulation of controlled substances. We have bars in town, and that's regulated of controlled substances. We have social clubs in town, and that regulates an adult beverage. Children don't have access to it. I think it's a misperception that this path has anything to do with accessibility to marijuana by kids. That's not the path by which you're going to get it. And I think it's the path by which adults can legally obtain a legal substance. And it's something that, again, I don't know how many times I've said, a majority of respondents have said that they want access to something that they are legally entitled to have access to. And I think we just need to focus on that. And as you said, there is a sale of cannabis-derived products within our pharmacies. There was a CBD store. There's other locations that sell CBD products legally in town and in surrounding towns. So, where I stand on the issue. I think that it's our responsibility to respond to the public, but also to address it in a way that provides a regulation. I'm, again, very sympathetic and understand the concerns. But we've got to frame the regulations to address the concerns so there's a comfort level from the entire public of Deep River.
Okay, great. Mike, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, a lot to say. The opioid crisis that you say you can get it at Walmart. Yeah, that's true, Alan. But, typically those are for people who are sick. It's not the opioids that, they're buying down on the Green and the Haven or underneath Route 95. As far as not in my town, we just had a big in-depth conversation about taking everyone else's garbage into our town. Not exactly the same. The survey, correct me if I'm wrong, that the EDC was supposed to have out was supposed to be a year ago. We still have not seen that. So we're just basically going on, someone's word that, in fact, the majority of the town does want this. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, planning and zoning did conduct its own survey.
Correct. So I gotta give two pieces of information. I hope this doesn't ignite something. I think what we're trying to get we're getting out of context here is that this has become personal again. These are everybody's personal feelings, and we're trying to do the best with the information we did get, which was, again, you guys are saying we need more, but you can only act on the information you have. And I think a big part of this is we were just focusing on, like Alan said, children and the negative. I just went through the process of how you would go about purchasing it, and it's more controlled than any bar you've ever been in any package store. They check your ID more than they do when you go to CVS to pick up your prescription. And one last point I'd like to make is having a brother who survived cancer, you can't tell me, and you'll never convince me that there are no benefits to this. I was going to keep that out of that, but I mean, we've gone so far all over the place with this. So I would implore you to consider that. It does benefit quite a few people. And I'm going to leave it at that. There's other people with their hand up. Stan, go ahead.
Yes, I do think there's a benefit to it, for sure. But we're not prohibiting it from being used here. If Essex gets it, there's going to be one right at exit 3. Everybody, we don't know Walmart. We have no Tractor Supply. We have no any big thing here. We have Adams. People have to travel out of town. So why not travel out of town to exit 3, one exit down, to purchase a retail store? Why do we have to have one at exit 3, one at exit 4, and one at exit 6?
I can rebut that. There's 15 package stores went up within a 10
I understand that, but it's the perception of the town that we live in. And I understand the survey was put out there, but there was a far less people answered that survey that live in town. If we want to go with something that is based on the townwide survey, let's go by a ballot box vote that has the people that are registered in Deep River to vote on it. If you're going to go with a survey that anybody could fill out,
so
anybody could probably fill out.
Again, the state didn't put that out there this way. They put it out to planning and zoning was going to
I
figure this
understand
out.
that, but we can base it off of a survey that I can't remember what the percentage of the town did not even respond to.
So there was 400 and something people out of the 3,856 that are in town. If we go with
So
this
what
next,
percentage is that?
yep, if we go with this next election, which is probably going to be a low turnout because it's not a presidential election,
exactly.
that won't be enough if it doesn't go the way that everybody sees it. So there is no end to this. I mean, I
know there's no end to
right.
it.
So I don't want to go round and round with anybody anymore. And I'll let you finish, Stan. And there's a few more people that have their hands up. There's a lot of people that just put their hands up.
With the people that I have talked to in this area, school teachers. I have kids in school, yes, and they're in elementary school, so I'm not worried about them. I'm more worried about the social media for my children than I am about drug use. I've had a nephew that overdosed and died, and he started on pot. And don't tell me it's not a gateway drug, because it is. And the fact that our town has the schools, it's not about whether they can get it on the black market in town. It's the perception of it right there. The school teachers say it's more the Essex people that smoke anyway, because they're the ones that can afford it. So I'm leaving it at that.
Well, thank you for that. Gary Clark, you got your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Question is for, I guess, the commission and for John. Just I guess, a scenario. Seeing how the town does not have a regulation set up, if I were to put myself an application in and have an application with the state of Connecticut right now, what could the town do about it because they have no regulation?
I think they can put it on the agenda.
Right. So it's right now, today. Well, actually, not even today. It would be treated like any other retail. A commercial retail facility would be treated. And so if you were in a commercial zone that allowed a certain square footage of retail as of right, Steve or I would be able to sign off.
Right.
Possible in the village, there might be design review, but it would be as of right. However, there is an active text amendment on the table. So, you're asking an academic question. So, I mean, if this text amendment fails and the town does not outright prohibit retail cannabis sales, then yes, it is treated like any other retail.
So then I could just come in and open up a store in the center of Deep River and be done. with it.
After you got through the extensive and expensive state licensing procedure,
Yeah,
yes.
which is no big deal, so.
Right.
All right, I thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Gary. Dan, looks like get your hand up.
Yeah, yes. This is questions for John. So a way to regulate this, which the town was looking for this board to do, that's what we're here for. We had that, we regulated it down, and it looked like you guys even had a good way around when we found out in the last meeting. It's like watching TV on the Zoom thing. And last month's show, they said, oh, now there's gonna be more licenses, more than the 2. And then everybody's face went white. And then that was kind of like the cliffhanger. And
to be fair, everybody here is white.
Oh, ouch. Okay, so the idea being was we said, okay, well, we don't, that's happening too fast, but we still had it regulated to a point, or you guys did, I should say. I have nothing in there, where they could have only opened one in town anyways, because you basically had it regulated down to the back corner of one of the industrial parks under the freeway, I think is where we left off. And so my question for you, John, is what happens next if this is voted up or down? And if it ends up going, I mean, by you voting it, the second part of that is if we don't regulate it, if you don't regulate it, aren't you just pushing out the inevitable to create a vote like Stan was saying, and then it comes back and then we have to regulate it again anyways?
Yes. So if we put it to a town vote and they vote in favor, then yes, we'd be back rewriting regulations and hope maybe we would use the ones that were already there. Sorry to save you, John. Or not.
Yeah, well, no, but
I'm
it's
getting
not clear.
confused.
It's not clear to me what the town vote would be, because this is you're asking about a zoning regulatory matter. You're asking about land use, which is the authority of the zoning commission.
Yes. See, my point was, I'm trying to make it simpler, is as long as you're regulating, that's where the power is. With prohibition, you're giving away that opportunity, because then it's going to go some other route and come back, and then you may have to regulate something that you'll have less control than you do now. That was what I was thinking, but I really don't know, because I'm confused by what's happening, John.
So I'm not sure if I understood the question in there, but let me summarize how this would work. So, the zoning commission regulates land uses, and they can either allow as of right, they can allow with regulation in locations, or they can prohibit. What this commission chose to do last month with micro cultivators was to regulate it as a special exception use in the Turnpike Industrial District, only in areas that did not immediately abut properties that did not immediately abut residentially zoned. So that did limit significantly the potential universe of parcels in which a micro cultivator could be. That same commission, this commission last month, decided to disaggregate that from retail, voted down the allowance of retail, but because there was not a proposal on the table to prohibit retail, for this last month, it technically was allowable if you were able to get a state license and an existing commercial facility in a commercial district that allowed retail use. And that's, as of right now, this minute, that is still the case. It is essentially treated like any other allowable retail use in the town per zoning. This would put it in this proposed amendment would put it in the prohibited category in all zones in town.
All right, Dan, if you're good with that, Christine's got her hand up.
I'm good. I thank you, John. Actually, I should say thank you for explaining and going through it. It seems to me to be a very wide circle, very full circle to what inevitably will be some good regulations put in there.
And I'll add that, when I said this is the Planning and Zoning Commission, similar to I think someone else is probably Sue mentioned about liquor prohibitions. There have been traditionally some dry towns in the state. That's a matter of ordinance, and so the town could take up as an ordinance in town meeting a essentially a dry ordinance for marijuana, where it would not be, business would not be conducted in marijuana. Obviously, the use is still allowed, but the business of marijuana would be prohibited if that was chosen to be taken up at town meeting in a matter of ordinance. But obviously, zoning can only deal with zoning.
Thank you.
Christine?
So Stan made a good point. Maybe you just kind of addressed this. I don't know, but I mean, we don't want a place at exit 3, 4 and 5 or 6, so this is why it becomes really important that the tri-town somehow or another collaborates around this. So if, let's say, somebody puts in a permit, or request for Essex, right, that there's something in their regulations, or I don't know, 600, so many feet, one town over, I don't know, but something like that should be taken into consideration, because in our small towns of 4,500 people, that would be a lot of marijuana.
So I was going to throw two things at you. If there's a counter to that, in that if there is one at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up the highway, there's less people in town, there's less traffic. And secondly, I think we put it in such a great spot that we could have blamed Essex anyway. We had limited it to, hey, it's right there in the industrial park. That's on the Essex line. That's, Essex did this. But anyway, if there's nobody else, and I'll go through the 3 things again. We're just going to look to close the public hearing on this because we still got to get through a bunch of other stuff. Nope. Sue, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think if we had a place on Main Street that was selling marijuana, I think it could be kind of a classy place that might draw custom from travelers, and people would come from, just like when we have the fifers and drummers, what do they call that?
It's a muster.
Yes. I
Yep.
mean, it could draw people like that, and just people would come from all over to come to Deep River. You know what I mean? It could be like that.
I do.
You'd have to make it a social club.
Right. In the R30 zone.
Well, it would be on Main Street. It would be a real
Yeah.
draw for people to come to Deep River. At least that's what I think.
Yes, that's why they pack Hartford, Bridgeport, and Waterbury.
I think Russ Calamari actually mentioned that he might open one up. So if
Anyway, that's my input.
he's got the money to do it, so. All right, is there anybody in favor, against, general comments? Going
In
once.
favor of this amendment?
Nope, just, so we're gonna close this public hearing, and then after that, we'll go through these again and we'll vote on everything. If there's any, you guys need any more input? Is there anybody who has any more comments before we go ahead and close this? Going once. Going twice. Third time's a charm. Okay, looking for a motion to close the public hearing on the text amendment application.
I'll make the motion, Stan.
Thank you, Stan. Looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Fred?
Yay.
Alan?
Yes.
And Marion?
Yes.
All right.
And Alan, can you turn up your sound? I don't know if it's my computer. I can hear everybody else, but I'm straining to hear you.
You have your
Pull
microphone
your
up by your
microphone
forehead.
down in front of your face.
Is that better?
He's a heavy
Yes,
breather, that's
thank you.
There you go.
Yeah. People are usually trying to get me to shut up or quiet, but
No. Push it up a half notch.
Okay, and where we're at now. Item number 4, because we're cranking along here. Audience of citizens. Citizens may address the commission on any item that is not on the agenda. So if you guys got anything, something you want to add? Anybody? Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay.
You have someone, Daniel Smith. raised his hand.
Dan, sorry?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Tony.
Yep.
I want to apologize to the commission. In the last meeting, in the non-public section, there was some discussion that riled some of us in the audience, and I did speak up, and I want to apologize to that. the confusing thing with the discussions that are brought to the board during that part of this meeting, overall meeting, outside the public hearing, is that here we only have so much information. And as of last week, when I did speak out of turn, Alan was kind enough to explain the context. But it is, when you're seeing it from this side, you're saying, oh, hey, let's take this R80 section and totally toss out every regulation we have to make something different. And then not all the information is there because that isn't necessarily the context or everything. So again, I if this is the place to put it, I just want to apologize to the commission for that and explain my little upheaval there. But that's it.
I don't think any apology is necessary. I think we're grateful for the fact that we've got participation from the public. And I think more often than not, we're the ones that don't necessarily always honor the process and procedures. So we appreciate you attending.
Agreed.
All right, thanks, guys.
I don't know what Alan's talking about. I'm an ace at this. I mean, anyway, anybody else, audience or citizens? Hearing none, going to go on to approval of minutes, July 21st, 2022. Everybody have a chance to read these? I'm going to tell you I did not actually read them, so I'm going to abstain from voting on this one.
I move to accept the minutes.
I have some comments, Tony. Let me just pull them up. Give me 1 second, please, if I can find them.
Just going to do this on the screen here.
Where did I put them now? All right, in the I only had 2 small comments, and it was just to prove that I had read the minutes. And one was pertaining to your comment under item number 3, public hearing, commission comments. The chairman noted that there were 400 responses to the online survey in favor of regulating cannabis facilities in town. I believe what you said is that there were 400 responses to the online survey in favor of allowing the use in town.
Correct.
Does that?
Yep.
And so the only other comment was, this is under item 7, new business. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs down. In the middle of that, it said Alan Parody noted that he is favor of approving use in the TID zone. I just wanted to clarify that it meant that I was in favor of approving use in the TID zone. So very minor.
Brett, do you accept these? Since you made the
I
motion.
accept the minutes, and whoever wrote them deserves a medal. Thank you.
All right, Alan, I'm assuming with those, you're going to second this?
I will second it.
All right, Mike?
Agree.
Stan? You there? Okay, and Marion?
Yes, and I did read them,
All right,
but I
moving on
missed
to,
those comments.
moving on to old business. Special permit for conversion of existing barn and 600 square feet retail space for 11 Union Street, applicant Jeannie Maneri. All right, so you guys, any questions, comments? You guys want to discuss this? If you guys are all good with this, just looking for a motion to approve.
So, Tony, I just want to make one comment. I know that there was a request to make the application compliant with the actual plan that was submitted. I think there's still a discrepancy of the application requesting 400 square feet of retail and the plan diagram showing 600 square feet, which is within the threshold and appropriate. But I'd just like to see that change in the application. And with the submission of the site plan, it demonstrates that the building is non-conforming. it is conforming as an accessory structure, but not as a primary use. And this application does make it a primary use on the site. So that being said, my recommendation is that this would go to Board of Appeals. I do want to say that I'm in favor of this, but procedurally, I don't think we have the authority to approve a non-conforming structure.
If I could, Alan, I think I would disagree. The structure is, the structure is not only, it's not only conforming as a accessory use, as accessory structure, it has been there for decades. And she's not proposing any structural changes. There is no increase of nonconformity whatsoever.
I was going to ask, because so this is, this goes to the trash facility almost, right? Because even though they're changing their use, it's all within the building. If they were adding on to the building, it would be totally different.
This is even less than the trash use.
Okay,
because it's a permitted use in the regulations currently.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so they don't need, because it's a change in use in the building, it's no ZBA?
Right, it's
Make
an
sure we're looking
allowable
at that
use.
here.
It's an
It's
allowable
allowed
use in an
use.
Okay.
existing building.
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
I make a
Anybody?
motion to approve.
All right, does Stan?
Yes.
Looking for a second?
I'll second that. Oh, no, Marianne beat me.
Okay, so now that we have the motion on the floor, are we quickly, I'm assuming we're approving the 600, you brought up the discrepancy. I think we should note that we're
Yes.
approving the
Correct.
600
Yep.
square feet, not the 400. Okay, any discussion on that motion? If not, Mike? Nope.
I was just gonna say, it's an allowed use in the zone. She meets the parking requirements. So it's an allowed use.
Okay, good. Mike?
Yes, I agree.
I forgot who made the motion, who's second. Fred did, no, Stan did. Fred, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Marion?
Yes.
And I would vote in favor of this also. So congratulations, you were approved. Good luck with your business. If you're still here.
No, she left long ago.
All right. Moving on to item B has been continued. Item C, text amendment application for the, I lost my place here. Text amendment application to revise section 4.23 and 7B17 regarding the social clubs, applicant Scandinavian United Society. So I think after this discussion, I would entertain a motion to deny this so they can come back with what we discussed.
I second that, Tony. I think they should come back.
I didn't know I made the motion. Thanks, Mike. All right, any discussion on this motion?
Wait, I'm sorry. So what's the motion?
To deny this and have them, and
Oh, okay, to deny it with a note to encourage them to come back with a revised, yeah, okay.
right, what we discussed. So Mike seconded that. Fred?
Yeah.
Alan?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Marion?
Yes.
Okay, on to everybody's favorite. Text amendment application to revise section 4.16 prohibited use to add new 4.168 recreational cannabis retail establishment application, Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay. Any discussion? Anybody want to make a motion? Because
I would just like, I'm trying to get the sense of the commission. Because I thought last month, the sense of the commission was to deny, but obviously this month, it seems like the commission wants to approve something. But I guess I would vote to prohibit it, at least for now, without prejudice. I don't know if that's the correct language, just so we have something on our books so that we can come back and either draft or revisit the regulation from last month. Does that
So-
make sense? This is.
I
kind
think
of
Marion
me
raises a
trying
good
to
point.
feel
So,
you out.
I think, I think what we should have done instead of this was extend our moratorium like Chester did, if that was the feel of the commission. And this is my opinion, and I'm sure John's gonna chime in, but if you deny this also, I think honestly think we're still safe, because no one has applied to the state, doesn't have that in hand, and aren't ready to open the facility here. That's just my opinion. And
So you don't want to deny it, or you don't want to prohibit
if I
it.
was gonna make the motion right now, and I may just do that, and my motion would be to deny item D, text amendment application. But that's just, there's a motion on the floor, so you can second it, or somebody can make an alternate motion.
I make the motion to accept the prohibited use of cannabis in our town.
Okay, John, are we doing this the right way, or am I screwing this up?
I would say the motion should be to approve the proposed amendment.
I make the motion to approve the proposed amendment to prohibit it, retail sales, cannabis.
I'll second
in
that.
Nape River.
Okay,
I'll
guys,
second that.
slow down. So Stan made the motion to approve. Fred made the second. Is there any discussion on this motion? No, we'll just go to vote.
I do want to make a comment.
Yep. Go ahead. Did we lose you?
I see his mouth running.
You're on, Alan, you're on mute,
No?
or your headphone getting disconnected.
I'll tell you what, I know what he was going to say.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Well, you went to say something too, so I thought you were going to throw in what you had to say.
No, I would, I'm still muted. I'm trying to interrupt. Oh, okay, he's gonna come back.
Okay.
I would just note again, if this motion to approve the prohibition fails, we're sort of back to that space in which, in theory, if someone had their state license in hand, they could apply for a retail permit in the commercial district.
Right. And
in a retail allowable commercial district. That's where we would stand if this failed.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman.
Can I get a clarification, then I'll jump right back to Mike, I promise. So somebody would have to have that application in hand, and they would have to have it for Deep River. No, because when you apply, you have to specify what town you're after, I believe. You have to have a place. You can't go apply and go, well, it's anywhere in the state. You already have to have a specific site in mind.
I think you do. I have to have at least the target municipalities, I believe.
Okay, so that's why I was saying I think we're relatively safe. My other end of this is if it does get approved, I think we should discuss this. Anyway, I don't want to mean to take up everybody's time. Mike jumped in before everybody raised their hand, so Mike, go ahead, please.
No, I was just, did Stan already submit a vote, or were we in the process of that, Tony?
No, yep, so right now there's a vote on the floor to approve. Fred has seconded it. Now we're doing the discussion, and then we'll do a roll call once I got a bunch of hands up.
Thank you.
Yep. Stan, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say, if we approve this prohibit right now, it doesn't stop people from coming back and trying to change it.
Nope.
Okay, down the road. All right, whatsoever. I mean, that's what everybody does. That's why people come to us. But
just
this, exactly, this will take out the naysayers in it. The ones that are on it that really want to come, that'd be fine. That are up and coming. I don't know how to explain it, but
okay.
So not everybody's going to pile into. Let them deal it out in exit 3. Let them deal it out in exit 6, and then they come to us and say, "Oh, it could be a really big thing here, then we revisit it. But if we prohibit it, it's not going to have somebody that says, oh, we got to beat them to exit 4.
Okay, I agree with,
Somebody's going to come back and say, yes, we're going to have to revisit it for sure.
okay.
But if we put this in right now, it saves our butt from them opening up in the ice cream parlor next to.
Which
the
one?
lunch.
There's 3 of them, so
Yeah,
which one?
Yeah, which one?
All of them.
Ice cream and weed, huh? All right.
So you don't want gummies on your ice cream.
Right.
No.
So-
not that. And that's the other problem. Like in Colorado, I was talking to a bunch of friends I have out there. Is they package everything to look like, so all the gummies are packaged like they look like the Hardaballs, like the ones
Yeah.
that everybody knows for their kids. It's the same color packaging. It's ridiculous.
It's the same thing with their marketing,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
vaping materials, et cetera. It's that early adoption. So I do agree with you in that regard, Stan. And I guess my concern here is, you know, I think there's a lot more discussion that should happen. I'd much prefer to see this commission move towards consensus rather than, you know, vote one way or the other. And I think you're on board with that. And it's, I understand your approach is really say, let's say no for now. It is essentially a moratorium because we can revisit it. But I'm very sensitive to the fact that I think the public perception is that a lot of times the commissions do not act on behalf of the public. And we may not have the full picture of the public and the full input. So we work with what we got. So in that regard, I agree with you, Stan. And I think we need to make, and that's why I voted, you know, to bring this forward last time was we need to have something on the books. So my opinion is that I still think that we should have some form of retail up, you know, retail allowed in town, whether it's just medicinal or whether it's whatever constraints would be amenable to the commission, but meet the needs of the public. But in the spirit of making sure that we're in a position that we're have the luxury of time to revisit this, then yeah, we need to pass something. I'm still probably going to voice a vote on the other side, but I just want you to know where I'm coming from.
You know, I was going to say that Stan, you've done a hell of a job because even the last couple of comments, you know, everybody's willing to revisit this. So, you know, I feel a little more comfortable than combative at this moment. So thank you for that.
Well, the way I look at it is it's in our future, no matter how you look at it. Okay. But you're not going to have everybody applying for a permit for Deep River if they say, oh, it's not allowed there. But if there's somebody that's wanting it, that's going to go through the trouble of changing our regulations, then they deserve to be the one.
Thank you. I agree. I can't believe I said that, but I agree. Marion, you're up.
Oops, yeah. No, I guess I agree with Stan. But last month and the month before, the people that appeared before us were basically anti-retail for a variety of reasons. And I personally can see both sides of it. And so I think that's why at least I was moved to say, okay, retail seems to be problematical. But I think I agree. I think we should revisit it and maybe in discussion for a while before we go to public hearing. I don't know. I think we can do that. Just so we can come to some kind of agreement and then throw it out to the public again. And maybe we'll get a balanced pros and cons, because last time we got the cons. This month we got the pros in order to respond, but to do it, I guess, under our zoning purview, which is the best zone it should be in. That's it.
I mean, I think you nailed it. I think people were passionate one way and then, and saw it go that way. And then, you know, they realized that the people who were in favor of it just came out because of, you know, they thought it was going to be denied. So I think it's never going to, it's always going to be contentious, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, any more discussion? If not, I'm going to put this thing to a vote. All right, hearing none. Stan, you made the motion. Fred, you seconded it. Mike?
I vote to approve prohibit use.
Okay, and Alan?
No.
Okay, Marion?
Yes.
I vote no, but it has passed. So, okay, moving on. Reports, zoning enforcement officer. He probably left. I think he left the country at this point.
I completely unprepared.
We also have a new application.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I skipped right over new business. So let me back up. I need a break. Item number 7, new business. Application receipt, text amendment application to revise section 4.26 preservation and recreation zone to allow general merchandise, arts and crafts market by special exception. Applicant Kim Bartolata.
Can you scroll up on your screen, Tony, just a little bit,
Oh,
please?
sorry. Yep.
Thanks, bud.
And this is just to accept and set a public hearing, I believe.
That's right.
For the date that we just changed, which is September 15th. Looking for a motion.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Before we go through, can you explain a little more of this before like we vote on it?
So I don't think we have a whole lot. I think it was just a set.
No,
hearing.
So I can give you a very brief overview of why this came. So the preservation and recreation zone is a relatively limited area and includes the historical society property, which is sort of just southeast of the the point where Union Street splits off from South Main. A little south of there, Tony. Yeah, in green. And the historical society property had hosted a a little fair, not like a farmer's. Well, I mean, sort of similar to a farmer's market, but it's sort of like arts and crafts type thing. And you'll recall about, I don't know, 6 months ago, you guys had approved a farmer's market to go across the street there on the church property. But you'll note that the church property there is in pink, which is a village mixed use zone, I believe, and would allow that sort of market if it's on municipal property or for a municipal purpose. This is a different zone and it's a slightly different use, so they can't sort of use the municipal sponsorship of it. So they held one event, I believe in June, that ended up getting basically itinerant vendors licenses from the selectmen, but for basically a one-time event. But they would like to hold this on a more regular basis, and to do that sort of on a more regular basis, it's a land use, which is not currently allowed in that zone. And so, similar to lots of people that we talk to that want to do something that the current zoning regulations don't envision, we say, well, you got to change the regs. So that's what they're proposing to do.
Right. So just like the social clubs, this change would apply to that.
Anywhere
all
in
of
green.
all of the green.
All the green.
And then it would allow for a retail operation and physical facility within that to support that use.
Well, it would be, first of all, by special exception. So with that caveat. And second, I don't believe they provided, in this case, a definition of what sort of an arts and crafts makers market would be.
Right.
And so, we would have to have some clarification of if we're talking about, a Chester Fair physical, wooden pavilion type things, or if we're talking about pop-up tents, how many events, what are your restroom facilities, all that jazz would have to be envisioned.
Can I just say something? because I'm a trustee of the Historical Society. And I did not know anything about this application. So I think I should recuse myself.
No, I don't
But
think
we're
that's
getting
necessary.
late. So if I just kind of mute and stop my video.
Mayor, I don't think.
Mary-
Goodbye, good night.
Marion, hold on one
What?
second. You're trying to escape one, and two, this isn't regarding the Historical Society. This is regarding the whole
Okay,
That
I
whole
just
district.
wanted to,
Right.
to put that out.
Assuming you're not a paid trustee and you don't have a financial stake in
God,
this,
no.
then you're safe. Don't worry about it, and don't go anywhere.
Right. All right, so if you guys are good with that, we're just looking to accept this application, set a public hearing for the 15th.
Is there enough for us to go on here?
Oh, yeah, it's just.
It honestly doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They submitted an application, they submitted a fee.
Yeah. I mean, we're not making a decision, we're just setting a public hearing. You get to the public hearing and require a ton more information too.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Seconds that motion, Alan.
Fred,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes, with it.
Eric.
Thank you, of John, for explaining that to me. I appreciate that very much.
thank you, Marion. Thank you, Marion. Thank you, Stan. Marion,
Marion excused herself.
Oh, yes, but I think we need more information.
Okay.
Wearing my zoning hat.
okay. There's, item B, establish a plan of conservation development working group. I'm not sure how we go about that, so John, I'm gonna leave that to you. Just so you know, Lori Giannotti from Land Trust has reached out. She wants to be on there. Lisa Di Maria, who is a resident, she would like to be on there. Looks like John from Wetlands and the Land Trust has thrown his hand up, so go ahead, John.
Yeah, just reiterating what you said about Laurie, that the Land Trust is definitely interested in being involved. And, you know, as my two hats, I'm definitely interested from the wetlands side of things too.
Okay. Fantastic.
So I made the mistake of deciding that I wanted to come to this meeting for this topic and not leaving the whole thing to Steve. Big mistake.
Did
big
he
mistake.
leave too? No, he's here.
Thank you, Steve. So we are under contract now, and we are here to help, update the plan of conservation and development. So it's time to start. The sort of the fundamental question is, how do you want to proceed? Some towns do this as a solo effort of planning and zoning. That it's a committee of the whole, and sometimes you get input from. You solicit input from wetlands, you solicit input from conservation, from economic development, but it's fundamentally a planning and zoning commission process. Other towns create an interdisciplinary committee that sort of, that is sort of charged by planning and zoning to kind of work on this topic. And I guess if that is the case, then obviously, Lori from the Land Trust and John from Wetlands and EDC, would want to be involved. But it's, this is your plan. And we want to just figure out what your process it wants to be. That's sort of the question. And Tony, you as chair, designate ad hoc committees.
So with that being said, knowing how overworked I am already, I would love for other people to have input on this and do some of the legwork here. So I think a working group would be fantastic. And I think it should encompass the Land Trust and Wetlands and EDC if they're willing to give us input. As many people who do have say in this town should be involved in this. So, Mike, I know you got your hand up. I'm going to ramble for a second. So I think it is an ad hoc committee. That way, there's the best way to go about this. So again, it would be all volunteers. If it would, in a perfect world, I'd love to join depending on the days, but I can't do this and the million other things I'm doing. I hate to rag on that, but so if someone else from planning and zoning would like to take the lead on this and I could be the backup, that would be fantastic. Mike, you got your hand up, please.
Not for that, Tony, sorry.
Go ahead.
John, a question for John. John, you obviously, I put a lot of trust and faith in how your knowledge and how you present yourself. You've worked with some pretty successful towns. It's difficult at best. We're trying to figure out who wants to get involved, who can't get involved, and how much time they can put in effectively to be involved in something as critically as important as the plan of conservation development of any small town. We've languished behind, in my feeling, behind many towns. And in your opinion, are we better off going to the finance department, getting some real money and paying you guys to come up with and have a committee, on the sidelines to work with you, rather than trying to pool a group of people together and putting it off for the next 5 years? Not intentionally, but just logistically.
No, I think we're okay. And I'll say the thing that a bigger budget facilitates is more meetings. And Tony will tell you, as a consultant, meetings are the thing that kill budgets. What we could write you a beautiful plan for a couple $100.
What are you going to do for $200?
It's the public participation and the back and forth and the public hearings and the focus groups and all that stuff. That is what separates, and I don't know, maybe some fancy graphics at the back end, but that's what separates, sort of an expensive plan from a relatively efficient plan. I think the thing that will make this project successful, and I think we scoped this thing at a relatively modest budget over a couple of years, based on the fact that we're here and we're working with you guys every day, every week. We understand the stresses on the town. We understand the goals of the town. So there's a lot of shorthand that, sort of an outside expensive or more expensive consultant doesn't need to, try to figure out on the fly and get up to speed on. We're already, to a greater or lesser extent, sort of speaking the Deep River language. So
you've got the fly of a town already.
Right. So I think what would make this process efficient and effective would be a relatively small but diverse group of sort of stakeholders who are sort of committed to making steady progress on this and being open to, sort of outside input at appropriate times. So I think Tony's approach, I think where you're headed, Tony, is an ad hoc committee that's a little bit interdisciplinary, that'd be led by planning and zoning, but would have some membership, and then could report back regularly, monthly, to planning and zoning on where we're at. And I think we basically scope this as a 2-year process, starting basically in July. We're a month in right now, and I think we'll be able to hit that.
Okay, Alan, you get your hand up.
Yeah.
And you're muted.
You're
You muted again.
Hit the wrong button. I think it's important for planning and zoning to steer this boat as they always have. But I think it's also imperative that we get broad input, broad participation, and I think that's going to get a lot more public participation and a lot more public buy-in. I am entirely in support of kind of the ad hoc, kind of interdisciplinary or representation from other commissions and groups in town. But I think it might be important to keep a steering committee that maintains kind of the helm and a kind of fiduciary responsibility to guide the process and get the result, which would include you, Tony, and John, necessarily, to take care of the kind of the administrative type stuff, and then the working group would be responsible for content, and then we get the breadth input and the resources from the other commissions and boards.
I agree with you, which I think that's kind of where we're headed. We clearly have a land trust volunteer, we've got a wetlands volunteer, just a, person in general from town looking for planning and zoning volunteers.
I'll throw my
I'll
hat in.
volunteer.
Look at that. Fred and Marion are gonna volunteer. I love it. Yeah,
I could do, I mean, yeah, I'd like to be involved too.
okay.
I don't know what it's day. I can't be running meetings or anything, but.
Come on, this is Kate. Trying to bring stuff up on the screen and.
Well, I'm sorry, so Stan, Marion, and Fred are interested in,
Yep.
Tony, I'd like to remain involved in some form in the POCD, beyond just responding during the commission meetings as well, but I'm not sure what the right structure is, and I'm afraid it might be getting too big, so.
So I was just gonna ask that, is that too big, and two, so let's say you have a meeting every other month, that gives John, the lead to be able to make changes to the plan, and then he meets with all these people. Can I hop in and out as chair? Is that a thing? Same thing, I'm assuming Alan, say he can make one meeting, but he can't make 3 in a row, or.
well.
I know you're reporting back. Go ahead.
I think, Tony, if you're gonna essentially establish this as an ad hoc committee,
Yep.
that's gonna lead this process.
Yep.
And, if I can assume, you're gonna appoint, Marion and Fred and Stan as representatives, and yourself and other, it's an ad hoc committee. It's gonna be an open meeting.
Yeah.
You guys are able to participate. Ideally, you would appoint a chair and designate the chair to also work with us and include, Lori and other people that have expressed some interest in participating, Lori and Lisa. And we'll set up a schedule of meetings and start doing that. But having a point person that represents planning and zoning would be useful.
So Marion, I'm throwing you under the bus. I mean, you've done zoning in town, so you're my first choice. I'm not trying to be insulting, but she worked for zoning for the town of Essex forever, so.
Hey, that's why I said I can't do that, so.
If you're good with that, Marion, I would love to have you. I think she signed off.
I saw that's fine.
That's it,
come out of her face.
No, I
yeah.
thought she signed off.
No, I just, I kind of mute so that you don't hear the dog barking and the cat squealing. So
Oh,
yes, it's fine.
I appreciate it.
All
So
right, so I'll work with Marion and we'll set some stuff up.
you guys are fantastic. All right. We don't need to vote on this, right? I mean, it's just ad
No,
hoc.
this is entire Tony Power thing.
Oh, look at me go, just pushing it away. All right, you guys are fantastic. John, don't hang up because you're next, ZEO reports.
All right, and I'll lean on Steve. I mean, it's been a busy month for applications and getting all this stuff coordinated. There's also been, I'll say, a lot of chatter around the Lace Factory, which recently, I think probably in the last month, maybe just over a month, had a legal settlement. They had a court dispute over the noise of weddings and things like that, special events held at the Lace Factory.
Paper.
Zoning is vaguely involved. The court settlement gave the owners of the Lace Factory basically to the end of the year to install some sound attenuation structures, both inside and outside the building, but that hasn't stopped the neighbors from burning up the airwaves, with complaints about weekend noise and event noise. It's been a lot.
Can I ask you a question about that? So what do you, that's not really a zoning issue. Why are they calling you?
Well, it is. Insofar because they're special permit.
Yeah.
I believe, well, I mean, first of all, there's zoning nuisance, right? There we have the general noise, odor, dust, vibration stuff. And then I believe the last special permit adjustment that they had required noise to end at a certain hour in the evening. And I mean, it's not as if your zoning officers are here at 10 o'clock on a Saturday evening, but there are things on the books about compliance. So, the disgruntled neighbors are going to use zoning as one of their avenues for dealing with the issue. But other than that, the majority of the stuff that we're dealing with has been addressed on the agenda. I will also note that I'm sure there's been a lot of scuttlebutt in town about what's going on at Mount St. John's. They are in process of being acquired. I don't know the official legal status, the official, by a youth education and sort of behavioral treatment facility, for profit. And the attorney for the facility, which I believe is called Newport Healthcare, we're going back and forth with him about trying to define the contours of what Mount St. John's was approved for, which was more than just a private Catholic school. There were some behavioral treatment stuff. There was some, and so we're trying to trace the special permit path and the use path versus what the new owners or I guess projected owners at this point are proposing to do, and determine if there is really any substantial difference that would require them to come back before planning and zoning. At this point, it's my understanding, and Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they're not proposing any site changes that would require a special permit. They're not adding buildings, they're not changing parking. I believe at some point in the future, they're probably going to take out the old rectory building because it's structurally unsound. But the things that would trigger a special exception, we're sort of trying to discern what the current permit status was and what the new use is proposed to be. So we're kind of going through that process. But my initial sense is that there's not a heck of a lot of substantial difference between the historic permitted use and the proposed use, but we're sorting through that at this point.
Fantastic.
Steve, you have anything to add?
No, well said.
So there's going to be an ice cream shop is what I heard.
Sorry, no, I should have said cannabis. It's going to be cannabis.
All right. They got to get a gondola down to the river too, so you can get it from your jet boat.
I had already pre-approved a funicular, which is slightly different, but I think we're okay.
All right. Attorney, anything from the attorney?
Oh, I got one other question on enforcement. What's going on with Ashlon Outpost?
What the hell is that?
Oh, the old Deep River Farms?
Yes.
I thought they had 30 days.
They did submit some documentation about their use of the property as agricultural. And we, Steve and I had asked for some additional documentation. So we're not holding a, they have responded within the 30 days required, and we're sort of going through their documentation. I mean, they are running a farm of sorts. Obviously, the delta between a true farm stand where you're only selling zucchini and running exclusively a Starbucks, there's still a bit of a gap there, but we're giving them
because there's no agriculture taking place, so I don't know what they're talking about.
That's incorrect.
Yeah, it hasn't rained in 2 months. Would you want to plant something right now?
Well, right. I mean, that's the distinction of what is sufficient agricultural activity is a little bit gray, and we are asking them to basically prepare a full proposal for the types of agricultural activity that they would like to conduct there, because again, we have an agritourism activities. It's sort of the first time I've seen a pun in zoning regulations, but we have an agritourism activities regulation that they are basically proposing that they are continuing from the former Deep River Farms, but the specific shading of it is slightly different. So we are giving them an opportunity to prepare their presentation for what kind of activities they'd like to take place.
Okay, I get questions from friends that are,
I'm sure you do.
have coffee shops.
I'm sure you do.
We've heard from those folks too.
So
nobody loves competition.
Mike, you get your hand
When
up.
they play by the rules.
Thank you.
Just quickly, John, I know everyone's tired. Do we know why Citizens Bank may have pulled the plug?
What?
I don't know. Steve,
Is that
you
on
know
Main
about
Street?
Yeah, it's up for sale
Yeah,
again.
that was I think that's what's his name, Mike.
Yeah, I spoke with
Marino's place.
Mike Marino actually this past Wednesday, and he's exploring some different options for the property. The main concern of his in particular is that the property does have an access way that is exterior partially for the upstairs. And he was exploring the possibility of coming in with a special permit, special exception for a mixed use restaurant lower and residential above. But he's currently looking for the restaurant tenant right now. So it's kind of in the works. I don't know if he's found a buyer for it or if he's found any prospective tenant for a potential fit out or renovation. But he is pursuing options right now, and he is interested in coming back for the site plan for 19 River Street as well, which was that zone change application that we had probably 2 months ago.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. All right. Any more questions for John or Steve? Okay. Attorney, anything?
No bills or no report this month. I think obviously Ken Slater looked into the question of solid waste. We'll probably get a bill next month.
Okay. Engineer, I'm assuming nothing. Chairman, I'm just gonna keep it short, sweet. GIS, they've made some fantastic changes. Don't know when it's coming online, but it's exciting. Like, I mean, you saw it tonight. I could show you a bunch more, but it's gotten late, so no.
It's hopefully next week. I'm meeting with Robin, the assessor, or early next week. Hopefully we're going to go live.
Fantastic. So see, this is all stuff. It's under chairman. And just questions for you, John. So I know we talked about the online permitting. Just curious where that's at. Oh, come on.
So, you
want me to leave this alone and come back to this?
We still have hope. So I mean, the town did get a grant to implement online permitting. Some of it was contingent on another town participating and cutting our costs in half. Chester, in their infinite wisdom, decided that they didn't need that. And so, but fortunately, we have an interested party in Killingworth who is very interested in doing online permitting. So we are hoping to get a revised quote for Deep River and Killingworth to work together on an online permitting system that we can implement over the next couple of months. So assuming our first selectman does not get cold feet about spending money that is free from the state, and I'll put that on the record.
Okay.
Let's proceed.
I actually have to. So we have a YouTube channel now. Just so you guys know, I haven't uploaded anything to it yet. But the planning and zoning meetings, even though we're getting crap about not being live, are going to be online. So if other people missed it, clearly you guys haven't. You can go back and watch it. And I'm assuming they're going to add selectmen meetings because those are recorded, and whoever else is still doing that. Also, there's a selectmen meeting the next selectman meeting. I don't have a date in front of me, but they are having discussion about, and I can't say, I'm gonna get myself in trouble for saying this, but they're having a meeting about municipal waste. So you should probably go listen to that discussion. Anyway, that's everything I have for chairman. Budget, we got nothing. Payment of bills, you said there was nothing. Looking for a motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion to adjourn. Looking for a second.
I'll second the motion. Sorry,
Thank you,
Tony.
Mike. No worries. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Lee.